So I was coming down here. This is Charlie's No. Why did they have that? No. They should have.
He's gonna do.
She's running a few minutes late. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We only have 6 people here. So we need 2 more. 1. Did Jennifer Green say she was coming?
I think it was everybody but Rashida.
Well, Anne Red didn't respond to McKinsey until this morning when she emailed. Wow. But she needs them. So she is. I said I'll be eating early. So she'll be here.
That's sort of like.
And that was all because no one.
Yes. Well, thank you, ma'am.
Oh my God. Hey, it's Susan. You're ready. Mhm.
Yes.
No.
Like 11 on
According to their stated RSVP, yes. That's as far as I know.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We have a quorum. Thank you for attending today. I think first we're going to go ahead and start with roll call.
Roll call, Jenny West, present. Jason King, present. Rashida Ferdinand, absent. Stephanie Bruno, present. Donna Wakeman, present. Annie Clark, absent. Lee Bressler, present. Greg Hackenberg, present. Io Love, present. Jennifer Green, absent. Heather Sapari, present. Anne Red, absent. We have 8 members constituting a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. Welcome to the New Orleans HDLC Historic District Landmarks Commission meeting of December 7th, 2022. We would like to thank you for your attending and appreciate your support and cooperation with the HDLC. The HDLC is located in City Hall on the 7th floor at the city's one-stop shop. Our mission is to safeguard the heritage of the city of New Orleans by preserving and regulating historic landmarks and districts which reflect elements of its cultural, social, economic, political, and architectural history. The full HDLC mission statement can be found online. The HDLC has written guidelines that outline our policies and procedures. They are available on the city's website. Please determine if your property is in an HDLC district or if your property is an HDLC landmark before beginning any repairs or work on the property. If the work or repairs are visible from the public right of way, the work requires a certificate from the HDLC, which is known as a C of A or certificate of appropriateness. You must get a C of A prior to beginning work. Once a C of A is issued, changes must be approved before work can commence on the changes. If you have any questions about our policies or procedures, we have a highly qualified staff ready to assist you. Please pay attention to the following meeting rules. If you plan on speaking and are not the applicant, you must fill out a speaker's card and hand it to the staff prior to the meeting. All speakers must state their name and address for the record. Our meetings are recorded and televised. There is a 2-minute speaking time limit. Please turn all cell phones off or on vibrate. Phone conversations should be conducted outside of this room. If your application is denied or there is a no action vote, you have 10 calendar days from the date of this meeting to appeal to City Council in writing. The staff will furnish you with the details of that appeals process. Thank you.
If I may, we had several commissioners that were not with us last month. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce a couple of new staff members. We're very excited to welcome Krista Guzzo as our new plans examiner and Mackenzie Guillory as our office assistant. So we are very, very excited that we're approaching maximum staff. So all is well.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you for being here. I know last month we were in a different location, but I really appreciate it today. Okay. So with that, item 2, the minutes of the November 2nd, 2022.
Still
meeting.
move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Bressler. Do I have a second? Commissioner King seconds. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item 3, 2023 meeting dates and deadlines. Do we wish, it's a lengthy document. I don't know that we need to go through it. Are there any comments from any commissioners or staff? If not, all those, can I get a motion for approval on that? Commissioner Zafari, thank you. Second,
I'll second. Commissioner
Bressler, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4, landmark nomination of 914 Dante Street. Is the applicant present for this? Do you want to state your name and address for the record? Or we'll just go ahead and let the staff.
914 Dante Street is a contributing rated building located on Lot C of Municipal Square 110 in the Carrollton National Register Historic District. The building faces Dante Street, late Madison Street, renamed 1894, is backed by Cambronne Street and is bound by Ferret Street, late Elm Street, renamed 1924, late 3rd Street, renamed 1894, and Birth Street. As per the 2009 FEMA Historic District Survey, the building was constructed between 1860 to 1880. However, this is not consistent with research conducted by Robert Cangelosi. As per the book New Orleans Architecture, Volume 9, Carrollton, the house was most likely based on tax and permit information in 1885 replacement of the 1852 house. The 1885 tax assessment records note new house, and a building permit was filed on April 13th of that year by the widow of Francis C. Zeller for a house at this location to be built by C. Bender. This would be consistent with the comparison of the Robinson Atlas of 1883, the Sanborn Fire Insurance Map of 1896. The footprint of the building from 1883 does not match that of the building present in 1896. This would also indicate that the two buildings were not the same. Square 110 was surveyed in 1874 as part of a shoreline survey by the U.S. Navy. While a building is currently present at this point, the map is not clear enough to determine an exact footprint. Properly dating the building at 914 Dante Street is especially important because oral tradition and neighborhood legends state that the building was constructed in 1852 for Carrollton Hospital during the Civil War. Francis C. Zeller was not the mayor of Carrollton in 1852, although he was a council member at that time. Zeller became mayor on October 5th, 1863, was voted out of office in 1866, and reinstalled by military authorities in 1867. Zeller died in office on September 26, 1869. It should be noted that on March 19th, 1864, the Carrollton Times reported a fire at the splendid building of our worthy mayor, Mr. F.C. Zeller, now occupied by U.S. troops. So while the building is almost certainly not the same, the site is consistent with neighborhood lore. 914 Dante Street was in the Zeller family until 1950, when it was purchased by Susan Himes. In 1951, the building, which at that point was described as derelict, was renovated into apartments by its new owner and featured in the February issue of the magazine Living for Young Homemakers. Photos from that magazine spread show that this was the brackets for the balcony were present at this point, but the balcony is already missing in the magazine's before photo. The building was described as built entirely of cypress, with most of the interior wall boards, relics of long ago Mississippi flatboats. The article echoes the claims that the building was once a hospital during the Civil War, but also states that the building was constructed in the 1830s, which, as noted above, is not consistent with research or with the general history of Carrollton as a town or a neighborhood. Advertisements indicate that the building has been multi-use apartments since Hines renovation in 1951. The Historic District Landmarks Commission evaluates the significance of a structure based on the 4 criteria as established by Section 84.22 of the City Code, any one of which can make a building eligible for nomination. While this building is a contributing rated structure and has an interesting history, there is nothing which would make this building more notable, exceptionally notable. As such, the staff does not recommend that this building be nominated for study as a local landmark.
Thank you. So just as, I would like to note that Commissioner Green arrived as well, just for, so we have that on the record. Okay, so Susan Johnson, I did get your comment card. You are also the applicant for this. Do you wish to address the commission?
Yes, excuse me, may I have a couple of minutes? The 2-minute,
We will permit that. We also have 2 speakers' comment cards on this that we'll hear as well.
thank you. Susan Johnson, 2822 LePage Street, Town of Carrollton Watch. I am not paid to be here. Excerpts from a letter from Union Army Private Joseph Sanborn to his friend Luther Morrison of Sanbornton, New Hampshire, Camp Harney, Greenville, Louisiana, November 14th, 1862. Friend Luther, I received your letter written October 5th and was right glad to hear from you. We moved from Camp Parapet down here a month ago. Our regiment was put into a reserve brigade and it has gone on an expedition. They have been in a battle, as you will probably hear before you get this. I wanted to go with the regiment, but as I am detailed to work at the hospital, I had to stay here again. We have got 6 fellows here in the hospital that was wounded in the battle. One of them is from Leak Village. His name is Marshall Culver. He had a buckshot just into his head. It went into his eye and cannot be taken out without cutting the eye out. So they are going to let it be. He has lost the sight of the eye and will never have the use of it again. We have got a very good place here for a hospital. It is a large 2-story house. There was people living in it before we came here, but they had to leave it for us. We have got everything comfortable and handy, but I should be glad when this war business is done with, and hope the dawn of that day is near when war shall cease and peace, liberty, and union rest on America again. Excuse me. Please accept the nomination of this house as a landmark. You heard in the nomination report mention of lore and legend, and it's very important to the neighborhood, and it's never been really determined whether any of the original buildings still persists. There's a legend in the neighborhood of Union Army names, initials scratched into some of the beams. There was no interior inspection, and people don't know about this. And besides all that, an archaeological team led by Professor Ryan Gray of UNO conducted a dig in the side yard earlier this year. He said in an email the other day that some discoveries have been
We're at
made.
2 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to wrap up your comments.
He has yet to report his findings to the state. It's an important site and research is still ongoing. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank
Right.
you. We
Right.
have,
Can I ask her a question?
you can.
Ms. Johnson, what of the criteria, isn't there 4 criteria that need to be,
Oh, I'm sorry, I have
one-
them here.
one of the,
Um,
which one are you suggesting or ones?
Yeah, I'd say specifically number 1, exemplify or reflect the broad cultural, political, economic, or social history of the nation. Important in the early history of Carrollton, at least, which dates from 1871. And if we can broaden the scope a bit, we can say also to important events in national, state, or local history, the Civil War. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We do have 2 more speakers cards. Sunny Shields. Will you step forward, state your name and address for the record? And we'll allow 2 minutes for comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sunny Shields, my address is 1209 Washington Avenue in New Orleans. I represent the owner of 914 Dante. Thank you. This is an interesting building, not particularly architecturally significant. It doesn't look the way it's depicted in that photograph now. And as many of you know, I'm 100% behind landmarking buildings. I've served on this very commission twice under 2 mayors. I believe 100% in what it does, but this is not a proper subject for landmarking. It is true the land was what was said, but your own staff says properly and adequately, it's not this building. The Civil War, as we all know, ended in 1865. The mayor died in 1869. This house, this structure was built in 1885. This is not the structure. It has nothing to do with the history. So while the history is very interesting and should be acknowledged and remembered by all, this is not the building. So as much as I hate to do it, I would advocate that you do not landmark this building, which does not meet the criteria. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a question, sir. So what is your opposition to doing it? You just feel like it doesn't meet the criteria, so it shouldn't be done? Or is there other interest in doing things to the building that would not be allowed if it was a landmark?
No, sir. I am 100% for landmarking every single building that should be properly landmarked. But this building was not where these things happened. So it's not that I'm up here to say we're horribly against this landmarking. It's just that it's not proper. And it would be a shame if this commission, as broad as it is, with all you members here, wonderfully interested to landmark buildings that shouldn't be landmarked. That's all.
Thank you. And I have a few questions for the staff, but want to get to one more public comment. Colin Ruskovich. Are you the owner of the property? Thank you. So the owner is present as well, but is declining to speak, right? Does not need to speak. Okay, so to the staff and just to also, I guess, to clear up some of the questions from Commissioner Bressler. And I've read in depth on this prior to this meeting, as well as seen the communication between Ms. Johnson and Yvette, as well about clarification on the documents that were submitted. I guess 2 things. Can you clarify that the historic documents that were submitted are not pertaining to this exact property? It's to a property.
That is
Prior
correct.
to
This
its
property
construction.
was built roughly 20 years after the letter that Ms. Johnson submitted.
Thank you. And then the second would be, just because we do landmark on criteria, which is a great example for the public to see this, to understand exactly why we landmark and why, again, we are advocating for buildings that do meet the criteria to be landmarked. Can you go through the criteria themselves, as well as explain why this particular one does not meet those criteria?
Yeah, definitely. For every nomination, I try to make an argument on one of these 4 criteria. It needs to either exemplify and reflect the broad cultural, political, economic, or social history of the nation, state, or community. Perhaps the site, but we don't really landmark. It's just not the building that was there at that time. 2 would be identified with historic personages or with important events in national, state, or local history. Again, this building was built in 1885 by the widow of a mayor, so that's a hard argument to make for a historical personage. Embodies distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type or specimen. It's it's not. 4 would be a representative of the notable work of a master builder, designer, or architect. The builder of this was C. Binder, and this is the only building that I'm familiar with that he built or designed.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, so to move this forward.
Just one quick
Yes,
question.
Commissioner Bressler.
So we all agree the land was where these events happened. We just don't think this was the building where it happened. Is
Correct.
there a way?
Robbie Cangelosi did a good deal of research into this, and I just wanted to check up on it. I was able to find the building permit from 1885 in the city archives. So I am fairly certain that this is the site, but not the building.
Has there ever been the case where an address has been certified as a landmark because of the land and what's happened on that location as opposed to in that building?
I will defer that to Eleanor because I'm not sure about the history of that.
Not during my years at the HDLC.
And I think too, just for Commissioner Bressler, just for I mean, if that was the case, there would be a number you could imagine, while this one is historic from 1880s. You could imagine a very contemporary structure, potentially in an uptown partial site where something very significant happened on the land, but that the building itself isn't.
I mean, I've seen markers where it says something happened on this property, but I guess it's not a landmark.
Okay, so I think at this point, to move it forward, we would need
We would need a nomination in 2 seconds. for
Correct.
It to be placed under our jurisdiction as a nominated landmark during the period of study.
correct. So do we have any commissioners who want to provide? Okay. Do you mind explaining why you're going to move forward the nomination?
Because we've
Commissioner Green.
nominated buildings, say in Central City, that had less to do with any of those criteria, and we've all done that.
The difference in those instances were that the owner was putting forth the nomination. And in those instances, all an owner has to do is request the nomination as per our ordinance for it to be placed under our jurisdiction. In this instance, the owner did not put forth the nomination request and is opposed to the nomination.
I understand.
Commissioner Bruno, do you still want to make the motion for nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
It's too late to ask one more question.
no, this is,
Yeah, Ms. Johnson, do you have any
Oh, well-
indication? Oh,
we have a motion on the floor, so
Okay.
generally we keep conversation between commissioners at this.
okay. I'm just wondering, is there any indication, has anybody done any research to contradict the date of?
No, and I will say, if you read the emails prior to this meeting, there is quite a bit of back and forth between the staff, Yvette, who's done the research, as well as Robert Cangelosi, who is a well-known historian in town and has done quite a bit of research on this as well. So I think the staff went above and beyond on this application in terms of trying to find the history for the site. Okay, so with that, do we have 2 seconds? Okay, the motion has failed. It will not move forward as a nominated building. Okay. Thank you, and thank you to the applicant. We appreciate the work that you put in, and when you do nominate these, sometimes it does not work out that they're the ones, but we've learned a lot about this property. Even so thank you very much, and thank you to the owner as well for coming and bringing representation as well. So thank you, everyone. All right, we're going to move forward to item 5, the consent agenda. I'm going to read through these items. Once we finish, once I read through the list, I don't know if do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? You'll let me know. Okay. Item A, 725 Mandeville Street. Item B, 730 St. Ferdinand Street. Item C, 1502 St. Bernard Avenue. Item D, 1216-18 Columbus Street. Item E, 2430 North Rampart Street. Item F, 2517 Rousseau Street. Item G, 2010 State Street. 210, thank you, State Street. Item H, 2000 Magazine Street. Item I, 2005 Magazine Street. I do have public comment on item G. Is there any additional public comment on any of the consent agenda items? Okay, with that, item G, Colum Kennedy, are you present? Do you want to step forward and state, well, it looks like you're for this. Are you for this application? Okay, great. So we don't need to hear from you today, but thank you for being here. So for consent agenda, we're going through these. We're going to make a motion as one docket. And if we do not have any opposition and everything moves forward, then you're free to go after this motion. Do I have a motion from commissioners? Thank you. And a second from Commissioner King. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you to those who came down for the consent agenda. Your items have been approved. Item 6, you're now free to leave the meeting for those that just came for items on the consent agenda. You're welcome to stay, but it's a long meeting. So, but yeah, I don't see too many folks getting up just yet. Item 6, new business work applications. Item A, 2508 2510 Laurel Street. Is the applicant present? Okay, it does not look like the applicant is present. Have you heard from the applicant?
Not recently.
This one is in the Irish Channel. It does look like there is a potential fine on. This one is a little bit tricky.
We could probably go ahead and listen to this one.
Okay, let's go ahead and listen to this. All right, please proceed.
This is an application for the retention of demolition of a contributing rated one-story single-family residential building to grade and deviation of a C of A and conceptual approval of a new construction two-story single-family residential building in full control Irish Channel. FEMA research indicates the building was constructed between 1890 and 1900 and first appears on the 1896 Sanborn map. The previous owner and applicant originally applied for a structural renovation building permit. The C of A was issued on June 16th, 2020, and the building permit was issued the next day. On May 10th, 2021, the HDLC inspector was notified that the building had collapsed. The HDLC inspector noted that all stabilizing assemblies of the structure were damaged, likely as a result of destabilization of the structure, including removing of walls, chimneys, and installing insufficient bracing. The building had collapsed onto the neighboring structure and was completely wrecked, and in danger of collapse demolition C of A was issued the following day. The current owner bought the empty lot on March 4th, 2022, and applied for new construction permits. Because of this, staff recommends that the retention of demolition be granted without fines. And if the commission does set a fine, the fine range for this property is $1,000 to $10,000. For the new construction, the ARC recommended conceptual approval with the details to be worked out at staff level.
Thank you. So to the staff, we'll need 2 motions on this application. Is there any public comment on this application? Susan Johnson, please state your name and address for the record.
Susan Johnson, 2822 LePage Street. I am not paid to be here. Please deny retention on this application. The developer is extremely sophisticated. He's a bad actor. He's known for facilitating demolitions before and should be fined. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Is there any further public comment on this application?
I had a question for staff. So it sounds like the prior owner was the one, and is there a way to find the prior owner?
No. There's not a way to. No.
Commissioner Hackenberg, this is in your district.
It is, and this is problematic. I'm very sorry to see this house go. This was a completely intact block face. And now we've got the missing tooth with a house that's not going to be the same scale and same size of those original shotguns. Again, the person who is responsible for this being out of the picture makes it a little problematic, because I'm always afraid of, now there's sort of a precedent set, which is somebody comes in the dead of night, tears one of these down and quickly sells the lot, then they can get away with it. However, finding the new owner and forcing them to attempt a civil litigation to require them to get their money back seems just, that's a difficult to do to somebody. Reluctantly, I'm going to make a motion to approve the retention of the demolition without a fine. And doing two separate motions on this one, or
Two separate motions on this.
can I make them both at the same time?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I will make a motion to grant conceptual approval with the details to be worked out to staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hackenberg. Do we have a second to that motion? Commissioner Commissioner Love, thank you. All right, so with that, commissioners, all those in favor? All those opposed? Commissioner Bruno is opposed. The motion passes. Thank you and good luck with your project to the owner. I completely agree with Commissioner Hackenberg in that this, it's unfortunate to see this happen, but it is difficult when the new owner is moving forward with the project as well. So thank you. All right, item B, 2105 Charter Street. This application has been withdrawn. Item C, 840 Spain Street. Is the applicant present? Does not look like the applicant is present. This one, I believe the staff is recommending denial.
For the front street facing panels, it's recommended for denial, but the rear panels are recommended for approval if they can confirm the vents won't conflict with the panel layout.
Okay. Commissioner Wakeman, this is in your district. I'd like to give the opportunity for the applicant to be present if possible. Do you want to? Wakeman's making a motion to defer the application. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner King? Is there any public comment on this application? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. We will hear this one at next month's meeting. Item D, 612 Bueni Street. Is the applicant present? Hello, please state your name and address for the record.
Mildred Walker, 614 and 2 Boney Street.
Thank you. We'll hear the staff's presentation and hear your comments following. Thank you.
Yes.
This is an application to remove existing wood window screens, excuse me, and install aluminum window screens at a contributing rated 2-story, 2-family residential building in Full Control Algiers Point. 612 Bounty Street is a circa 1920 bungalow craftsman stylized 2-story, 2-family residential building in Algiers Point. Between 2007 and 2011, the building was outfitted with wood window screens. Currently, the wood window screens are in a deteriorated condition and require replacement. The applicant is petitioning the commission to replace the wood window screens with custom aluminum window screens. And the applicant has expressed that they would prefer to replace the existing screens with wood screens to match, but the combination of costs and inability to hire someone to complete the work has forced this alternative request. Per the HDLC guidelines, the installation of screening at doors and windows of any other material other than wood requires the review and approval of the commission. Staff recommends that the window screens are to be removed and replaced, that the screens be replaced in kind to match existing screens.
Thank you. So the applicant, do you wish to address the commission?
Yes, I did some research trying to find the wood frames to replace, because I like for them to be, organized and have the same texture and everything. But so far, Lowe's and Home Depot, they don't even sell the wood anymore. So I have no other recourse but to try to appeal to you and get some recommendations.
Understood. So as just a few questions. So with the screens, we do prefer that they are replaced in kind, although often these are not recommended when they have not been in place previously.
Mhm.
The wood screens are often easier to build because they're custom to build to the actual opening. So you're right, they can't be found off the shelf. They're usually via a carpenter. But I am curious, in your research, were you able, often our New Orleans window sizes are a little bit different, so
Right.
it's often hard to find something that is off the shelf that fits the historic opening. Were you able to find aluminum screens that fit the existing openings?
Well, one vendor, Mike Hardware on Elysian Fields, they recommended it because they don't carry the wood,
They don't carry,
the frame.
correct,
The
yeah,
wood.
usually the wood is a custom
Yeah.
build with a carpenter, but
Right.
often in terms of cost, it ends up being about the same, just given the different window sizes. But have you, with Mike's Hardware or anyone else in town, look to see if you can find the different sizes of the screens to see if they will fit your windows exactly?
I didn't consider the screens. I was focusing on the frame,
Okay,
but I have replaced some of the screens past time. Home Depot carried the screens, but I can't say today that they still have them due to the storms and everything.
okay,
But I did talk with them. They definitely don't carry the wood.
understood. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Sapari, this is in Algiers.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think what you were
district-
trying to ask was, or say,
Yeah.
is that those are going to be custom made, whether it's wood or any other material. And so we don't ever allow anything other than the wood unless it was already there before. So I can't advocate for that or vote for that. But you're going to be pretty much in the same position. Maybe another material would last longer. I don't know. I gave up on having screens on my house. I redid them 3 times. The wood did, and the screens just don't seem to hold up on these 2-story, nothing else around protecting them. I have the same kind of house. So, I'm not gonna be able to vote to allow, another material other than the wood. So,
what's your recommendation for a recourse?
I would either not replace the screens. You do need to have a C of A to remove them, or you'll need to continue, replace it with wood. You'll have to have someone custom make it.
I
And I
understand.
know that's more expensive, but you're going to need to custom make the other material as well, because the sizes of your windows are all going to be unusual to anything that's going to be available for screens in particular. That's been our experience. So
Do you have any other recommendations of a store, someone that carries that type of material as far as the windows? Because the glass will be very vulnerable if it's not covered like the original screens to hold the glasses in place, especially because we are a hurricane state. And that's going to be redundant, having to redo this all over again every hurricane.
Commissioner Sapari,
Glasses are very vulnerable.
I'm gonna hand this one to Commissioner Hackenberg, if that's.
yeah, because I don't have that kind of
Sorry,
expertise.
thank you, Commissioner Hackenberg.
Yeah, I just want to say that the big box stores fortunately are not the end all of where we get materials in the city. And there are numerous local lumber yards that will carry a clear treated lumber that these frames could be built out of specifically for things like that. There are numerous ones around the city and they're very helpful. So you could look into that.
Thank you for your recommendation.
And I would also recommend checking out the Preservation Resource Center. They have lots of, contractor information and other resources available.
Correct. So this commission's not allowed to give you the names of locations for that, but the Preservation Resource Center would be a great resource for that as well. They can give you more detailed information. Okay, so with that, Commissioner Zapar, would you like to make a motion?
So I make a motion to deny the application.
Deny the application for aluminum screens.
Yes, for aluminum frame screens.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Hackenberg? Is there any public comment on this application? No public comment. Any further discussion from commissioners?
I have a question.
Commissioner Bruno, yes.
If she went with the aluminum screens, would there be any way to disguise the edges of them with wood? So that people didn't think they could pull out all their wood screens and
Are you,
With aluminum.
are you talking about similar to like a wood clad window?
They're talking kind of like the screen is aluminum. I'm assuming it's gonna have aluminum sides and rails and stuff. Any way to disguise it to make it look like it's actually wood?
No, unfortunately, there's not. I mean, the only thing that might be possible, but I think would weather over time is to paint the aluminum or to have an integrally colored aluminum, like pre-finished aluminum screen potentially, but I would assume that that's also cost prohibitive, as well as the sizing of the screens.
Yeah, either way, it's custom made. Okay, got it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bruno. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. Your application has been denied by the HDLC Commission. You have 10 calendar days from the date of this meeting to appeal to City Council in writing. The staff will furnish you with the details of the appeals process. I encourage you to reach out to the Preservation Resource Center to see if they
Will
can
do.
give you more guidance with this as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much and good luck with your project.
Mhm.
All right, item E, 722 Washington Avenue. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Albert and I reside at 722 Washington Avenue.
Thank you. The staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
This is an application to request the removal of one chimney from a contributing rated two-story residential building in full control Irish Channel. The applicant is requesting to remove the second chimney due to issues that it is causing at the 1840s townhouse. HDLC Inspector Daniel performed an interior and exterior inspection of the chimney on November 18th and found it to be in very poor condition. The masonry footing of the chimney had deteriorated, causing the weight of the chimney shaft to lean outward into the building wall. This has caused the weatherboards on the exterior to bow and the flooring on the interior to separate from the joists. While the HDLC does not typically approve the removal of chimneys, in its current condition, the chimney poses a danger to the building and its neighbors. Due to this, and that the chimney would likely have to be completely rebuilt, staff recommends approval of the removal of the one chimney.
Thank you. So the applicant, do you wish to address the commission?
I agree with the statement.
Thank you. This item is in the Irish Channel. Commissioner Hackenberg?
Yes, it is. I am convinced by the staff report. I'm going to make a motion to allow the demolition.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Love? With that, I would just like to state again to the public, so everyone's aware, we do not grant demolition of chimneys lightly. So to hear Commissioner Hackenberg say that he agrees with the staff report and that the staff is recommending approval in this instance means there's been a lot of research done into this as well. So with that, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any public comment on this application? No public comment. Any further comments from commissioners? Discussion?
I have a comment that Jesse would be ashamed of us.
Thank you, Commissioner King. Commissioner Wakeman, will you pull down the microphone? We would like to hear you.
I would like to commend the owner for making an application before the removal of the chimney.
Thank you, Commissioner Wakeman. I agree with that as well. So with that, all those in favor? All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. Item F, 2217-19 Dauphine Street. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hello.
Hello.
Danielle Matisse, 2504 Kentucky Avenue.
Thank you. The staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
This is an application to install new Galvalume standing seam metal roofing at a contributing rated two-story single-family residential building in full control Marigny. The applicant is requesting to remove the existing asphalt shingle roof for installation of new standing seam metal roofing and Galvalume finish. Based on FEMA survey research, the Greek Revival style American townhouse type building appears to have been constructed between 1870 and 1880. The building is 2 stories tall and has reduced visibility of the existing hip to roof from the public right of way due to the building height the low pitch of the roof, existing street vegetation, and due to an atypical parapet extension that runs from the facade to the rear of the building on the right side. The building likely originally had a slate roof based on its age in a previous C of A, which indicated roof ridge tiles were extant around 1980. These ridge tiles have since been removed and are now considered a permitted nonconformity. As per the HDLC guidelines, metal roofs are typically not appropriate for highly visible roof slopes or where the original roof material would have been slate, especially on higher style buildings. Based on these factors, staff has no recommendation and leaves approval for the request at the discretion of the commission. However, if approval is granted, staff recommends a proviso that the metal roofing be specified in a dark color with a less reflective finish.
Thank you. To the staff, can you clarify, it is the one that has the arrows above it? That is the roof we're discussing,
Yes.
not the metal roof.
And the proposed roof is basically similar to the roof that's directly in front of it at the one-story building. So it'd be that kind of color and
Thank you. It is visible and at least from that side of the street. So going down that public right of way. Is there, to the applicant, do you care to address the commission?
Yes, ma'am. So it sounds like you guys are saying approval besides the color. It would need to be dark. Is that correct?
No, they're leaving it up to the discretion of the commission.
Okay.
But just to note in the staff report, we generally do not approve metal roofs on highly visible slopes.
Okay.
That is a visible slope and that is in the direction of travel from both cars, as well as this is taken from a pedestrian right of way across the street.
Mhm. And the roof proposed is the exact roof that's right below it on the house next to it.
Correct.
And they're requesting the same color as well.
Understood. And I think I will say there are a number of properties in the Marigny that have metal roofs that were done prior to guidelines and other things that have come out over the years or are case by case, but we do not use neighboring buildings as precedent to allow adjacent buildings. Otherwise, we would have an entire block with metal roofs. But we do use the guidelines in terms of review for that, and the staff looks at them closely. We get a number of applications for metal roofs, especially since Ida we have, and have looked at those. I am curious, have y'all explored asphalt shingles or another option for roofing material?
We have, and they have shingles up there now. However, with the parapet wall on the other side, this is going to cause a lot of problems as far as having like longevity with no leaks in that area. So that's kind of where we're leaning more towards the metal material to put time into it as it goes up to the wall on the other side.
Understood. So there are a number of the parapet conditions that we've seen that can be flashed properly. Again, we're not sure. Like I said, we've gotten a lot of metal roof requests from different roofing vendors, from different contractors. But again, the HDLC does not allow those lightly, they're case by case basis and typically not when it's highly visible. I don't know how this will move forward. It's in the Marigny and Commissioner Wakeman's district. I would assume, given how visible it is, is likely not approvable. But I'm curious if Commissioner Wakeman has any comments or thoughts on this one.
Remind me to talk to you about this later, but no, I totally agree that given the direction of travel, the visibility of this roof really does not warrant making an exception and permitting a metal roof. So I would move to deny the request for a metal roof.
And I think, thank you, Commissioner Wakeman. So we have a motion on the floor. I think to this one, I would encourage just to look at the flashing details very carefully at the front. As you move forward with it, it is not, I will say it is possible to flash with asphalt shingles correctly to a parapet. So I don't want the public to get that kind of perspective from this conversation, but.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
just been a problem area for them in particular.
Understood. Is there a second to Commissioner Wakeman's? Commissioner Love, thank you, seconds. Is there any public comment on this application? No public comment, no further comments from the applicant. Thank you. And no further discussion from commissioners. Is there any additional? No comments? With that, all those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Your application has been denied by the HDLC Commission. You have 10 calendar days from the date of this meeting to appeal to the City Council in writing. The staff will furnish you with the details of the appeals process. Thank you for being here and for providing the comments, and good luck with the project. Item G, 2275 Bayou Road. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Ariana Hall, Operations Manager for the Joan Mitchell Center, 3244 Annunciation Street.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. The staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
This is an application for the request to replace the existing slate roof with synthetic slate tiles at a landmark one-story commercial building in partial control Esplanade. The applicant is requesting to remove the existing slate roof and possibly the asbestos shingle roof beneath with new composite slate. In 2005, a certificate of appropriateness was issued to remove and reinstall the existing asbestos shingles. However, in 2011, another C of A was issued to replace the existing slate with new slate tiles. The current slate is just over 10 years old and is showing signs of delamination and buckling, likely due to poor installation. According to the applicant, the asbestos shingles still exist under the slate tiles, which is causing damage to the roof rafters due to the weight. As the current slate is not original to the building and replacement of asbestos shingles with composite slate is appropriate, staff recommends approval of the application, provided that the composite slate is from one of our approved lists for significant rated buildings.
Thank you. To the applicant, do you wish to address the commission?
No, that was an appropriate summary.
Thank you. This is, I think the staff is recommending to the commission, the staff is recommending approval with the synthetic slate, which will be provided via the VCC list or the significant buildings list as well. So with that,
I'll make a motion that we approve this application, given that the slate is from the appropriate list.
thank you, Commissioner Clark.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bressler. Is there any public comment on this application? No public comment. Any further discussion from commissioners? Okay, with that, all those in favor? All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. Item H, 5718 St. Charles Avenue. Is the applicant present? Please state your name and address for the record.
Ryan Jill Architects, 810 Union Street, Suite 330, New Orleans.
Thank you, Mr. Jill. The staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
Did you
Deferral.
Deferral?
Yes.
I think the applicant would like to request a deferral until the next meeting.
Oh, thank you for that. This is on St. Charles Avenue. We do not have a commissioner for that district.
I'll move for a deferral.
Thank you,
to the
Commissioner
next meeting.
Bressler. Seconded by Commissioner King. Is there any public comment on this application? No public comment. All those in favor? All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
You've been granted the deferral. We'll hear you at the next meeting.
Great.
Thank you. Item 7, old business demolition applications. Item A, 2320 Tulane Avenue has been withdrawn. Item 8, new business demolition applications. Item A, 420 South Galvez Street. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Promise I'm not moving in with all my bags. Nicole Weber, 2131 Bienville Street. I represent the developer who is here today, Michael Meredith VPG, and the property owner. So this.
Thank you, Ms. Weber.
Sorry, that's
The
right.
staff-
I just went into it, right?
Sorry, just pause for a moment. The staff is going to make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following. Thank you.
This is an application for the demolition of a contributing rated raised two-story, two-family residential building to grade in partial control mid-city. Constructed in circa 1925, 420 South Galvez is a raised frame double shotgun residential building in the bungalow craftsman style. As seen on the Sanborn map below, the surrounding neighborhood was once comprised predominantly of residential buildings, and now it is a corridor for an expanding medical campus. The Craftsman stylized building is the only remaining residential building on the block. As late as 2019, this block on South Galvez Street included 4 two-family residential buildings and a tire shop, with an additional residential building across the street. Currently, 420 South Galvez is the lone remaining building, and although the integrity and greater two ensemble of the area have been destroyed, 420 South Galvez is important in its connection to the district's past. As such, the building is the only remaining vestige of what the area once was. The bungalow craftsman detailing at 420 South Galvez is typical of its date of construction, and although the building is currently vacant with boarded windows and doors, as late as September 2019, the building was occupied with its original windows, door side lights, and transoms. Now vacant, the building still retains several original architectural details that add to its overall special character and aesthetic interest. Characteristic of the turn of the century style, the building includes its chimney, exposed rafter tails, window and door configuration, and decorative front-facing gable with window. As the only remaining residential building within the block, these features not only add to the special character of the building, but also highlight it as an example of that style. An exterior and interior inspection were performed at the building on October 26, 2022 by HDLC Inspector Alex Nassar. The inspection revealed the residence to be in good structural condition. Quote, overall, the building is in very good condition and shows signs of neglect and vacancy. The upper two units of the building are habitable and would require minor cosmetic repairs to bring back into commerce, end quote. The full demolition inspection report can be viewed below. Currently, 420 South Galvez Street is the only remaining building in a once densely populated residential block. Within the past 6 years, this portion of the Mid-City Historic District has slowly been eroded due to demolition of residential buildings at a time when affordable housing is at a premium citywide. Based on the request to demolish the building in May of 2021, it is apparent no attempts have been made to improve the building. And based on the interior and exterior inspection, minor cosmetic repairs and cleaning would bring the building back into commerce as a two-family residence. Staff again recommends denial of demolition.
Thank you. So staff, one question. How long has the building been under the current ownership?
Under what?
The
Sorry.
current ownership?
I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
But I think that they were the applicant on the last May of 2021. I think it was the same.
So they've had the building.
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Weber, do you wish to address the commission? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Nicole Weber. So to address the question about the ownership, yes, the foundation has owned the property for, I believe, 2 years. Currently, the property has a fence around it. Graffiti, although you may have saw the graffiti on the rear accessory unit in the back, graffiti is removed timely and they keep the building painted, the grass cut, and that fence around it to secure it because it is a daily occurrence prior to the fence being put up where vagrants were breaking in, but they are maintaining the building. And as you can see, the building stands on its own as an island. But I'm here today to talk about what the future use of this site will be, and it will be part of a hotel development to complement and to be used part of the medical district. The medical district or our bio district does not have a hotel use for medical professionals, for scientists, for visiting professionals, for patients, for patient families. The hotels that need to be used are the ones that we have on Canal Street, in the CBD, and in the French Quarter that cater more to our visitors and our hospitality industry. So to have a hotel that would service our medical professionals and our patients and their families is a much needed use. So this is only part of one parcel shared with other parcels that are vacant, as you can see, that would bring about a $3.3 billion economic impact. And I'm here with the developer, who is a local minority-owned business, VPG Construction, and that's Michael Meredith, and he is going to talk about the development, and now that he has a joint venture and can speak about it, which previously when the application was submitted in, I believe it was May of 2021, the contracts were not solidified, but now we can publicly come out and talk about this, this development. Thank you.
Apologies, we're switched, vice and chair switched, so we're using a phone today for the music. Thank you to Mr. Meredith. Do you wish to address the commission?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record first.
Michael Meredith, 2439 Manhattan Boulevard, Harvey, Louisiana. And appreciate the opportunity to address the board face to face. And while we do respect the historical significance of this property, we think that the economic benefits to the city, the local area, and specifically to this block far outweigh the detriment that may come with the demolition. What we are planning here is a 200 key hotel that does fit into the larger scheme of medical tourism here in our city, as we try to compete with NCI designation with Johns Hopkins and Houston Medical Corridor. A building of what we're planning on developing is instrumental in doing that. Currently, folks who come in for highly specialized surgical procedures are forced to stay either in outlying areas of the city and specifically in the French Quarter. And we know that there is a huge market and a huge need in our city to fill that gap. And specifically here in this area, we have great partners, we have great infrastructure, and we think that that's an awesome opportunity to push our city forward in a manner that does so, but also understanding the economics and the dynamics that are here in this neighborhood. So while we do respect the heavy lift that it does take to bring this property specifically back, we think that those benefits for a medical tourism hotel far outweigh that, and would love to answer any further questions or engage about how that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. I have several questions, so I'm going to withhold questions right now from commissioners. I would like to hear all public comment. Thank you.
All right.
Susan Johnson, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. And if there's any further public comment, I would like to try and hear all of that at the same time.
Susan Johnson, 2822 LePage Street. I am not paid to be here. My question is, the owner of the property, is this the same owner of McDonough 11 that was demolished last year, June of 2021?
We'd have to ask the applicant that. I don't know the answer to that
No,
question.
just not the same one. Okay. If so much money is involved in this project, if there's going to be so much economic benefit, well, why can't the owner pay to move this building? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Is there any additional public comment on this application? Okay. I guess to both to Ms. Weber and to Mr. Meredith, I don't know who wants to answer or respond to questions. I have a couple. So we often see this condition. I'm very excited there's going to be a hotel there. It's very exciting for the medical district. We do see this condition often downtown where a historic structure is key or is already existing on the block, and that gets incorporated into the design and is used as maybe an entry or another space that's there. So have you considered any of those design elements or applications for this project?
So this type of low scale residential would be very difficult to incorporate into the larger building that would be necessary for the hotel to accommodate the hotel use. So, but what we have done is contacted 3 organizations. Those are listed in the letter as exhibits that we submitted and part of the staff's report. And those 3 organizations turned down the ability to have the building donated to them. But in lieu of that, what we would like to suggest or offer is that all salvageable materials will be donated to a local nonprofit so that they can be repurposed.
Understood. So there has not been any consideration by the design team to incorporate the historic structure into the design of the new 200 key hotel.
We have. There's a couple different things, and kind of speaking to her comment as far as being able to move the building. If you see, there is a huge energy situation in front of that kind of makes it very difficult. So one, we have considered that as a portion with some of the neighboring lots that were in the neighborhood. But I don't know if they have a preliminary rendering of what we're looking to do in this report, but we do have some traffic mitigation that we've got to do to make sure that we can flow folks in, and our entry point really kind of aligns with where this building is. And trying to be very specific on how we move traffic on 2-lane and South Gas.
We fully understand
Yeah.
a cleared site for new construction is much easier than working with a historic structure. But we are the Historic Commission and are here to review that and would like to preserve as much of the historic fabric as possible. And again, I realize that most of the historic fabric has been lost on this site, which is unfortunate. We've heard a couple of other applications. I don't know if they're right next door down the street, which have contributed to this. And often, even though this commission upholds the staff recommendation, there is an override at council. We understand that, but would really just encourage you to look to some of the other projects that are downtown where it actually makes it a much more interesting project to have that built in as part of the design as well. We don't often recommend moving structures because often either something gets lost with the contractor, and sometimes we've seen those lost where there was the intent to move, but it was less expensive on paper to demolish, and those things get demolished anyway, or they fail to be moved. They just don't make it in transit. So we actually are not asking that. I'm just asking if you considered keeping the existing structure in its current location and working the design around that element. But it sounds like y'all have not are not open to that idea.
Well, I would say we've looked at it. We have considered it. It's super intrusive, and I wouldn't even get to a cost perspective, but it really boils down to traffic mitigation down Galvez into 2-lane based on where our current design and entry is. So it is something that we've looked at. But I think it puts the project in doubt if we have to keep that building in its current sense in its location.
Okay, thank you for your comments. The staff is recommending denial of this application, given that it is a historic structure. It looks like the applicant has purchased it and was not intending to, I'm assuming you're not intending to fix it in terms of currently the interior's it's falling apart as well. Commissioner Clark, I'm looking to you. This is in Mid-City Street.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you've actually asked the same questions I was going to ask as well, because it seems, I live in Mid-City. Obviously, I'm the commissioner from there. I would love to see a hotel for our medical district here, but our commission is not that commission we don't make decisions based on what's going to go there. And given that the history of Mid-City with the hospital in particular has lost so much of its historic fabric, I really would love to see you guys look a little bit further into seeing if you could salvage this into part of a new hotel, because I think that would be an exciting and part for someone coming to a hotel. Is why people come to New Orleans is because of our history. And so I know they'd be coming here obviously for medical procedures with your particular hotel. But I think I'm going to have to go along with the staff recommendation and deny this application. As excited as I am for your project, I hope that your project can come to fruition and we can find a way to keep this building and also have your hotel, because I would love to be able to see both. So that's my motion.
Thank you.
Unless there's another
Second-
comment.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, Commissioner
before
Green.
So I don't know, is there a motion on the floor now?
We have a motion on the floor now, but without a second, we usually.
Yeah, but I can withdraw till you have your questions. That's
Okay,
fine.
Thank you. So I'm curious as to, so you all came before us in May of 2021. We said no. You went to the city council. The city council upheld our decision. What's different now?
So we weren't involved in the project at that point. But when this commission denied it last time, there was an appeal filed. However, the applicant withdrew it. So city council did not make a determination on that appeal. It was withdrawn.
Okay, according to what we have, it says that the city council upheld our denial. And so what I'm curious is, was at that time, was it also proposed to be a hotel for the medical district? Like, what was the purpose of the demolition at that?
So at that time, the joint venture agreement was not solidified. So publicly could not come out and say what the use would be.
So there was
no plan presented in 2021. So,
Okay.
and I do have, as part of the record, letters that were sent to the city council prior in 2021 withdrawing the matter. So for all intents and purposes, I don't want to correct the staff, but we do have on the record that it was not voted on by the council, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think we need, I'm going to look to Ms. Burke to.
I can double check the record, but a lot of times, and this may have been the case in this instance, if it's clear that the councilperson will not be voting favorably in the applicant's favor, the application is withdrawn. So it may have been that instance, but
Understood. 'Cause if
ultimately,
it- Yeah.
ultimately, the language that's put in our notes is that our decision was upheld.
And if they were going to be successful, they would have moved forward with it with commission, but it sounds like they've changed counsel. So Weber Consulting was not involved at the time. So they're back for the second attempt with a new consultant.
So I have another question. And so the same property owner has owned it since May of 2021. What has been done other than putting a fence up and covering graffiti to try to restore this building?
So the foundation's the staff have been there regularly to clean it, to pick up debris, to pick up trash, calling NOPD. I mean, we have logs of NOPD calls for vagrants who are loitering or breaking into the property. And so a lot of the damage that you see in these photos were done from individuals who are breaking in. You know, this building sits by itself on a city block with no other neighbors. And so it's been very difficult to keep individuals from breaking in, but they do go visit the site daily. And if they see something, they call the police. And since the larger fence has been installed, it has helped.
But has there been an attempt to restore the property so it could be returned to commerce?
So I can speak to that. I mean, we've counseled the foundation on what development options are here. I mean, and their initial attempt to say, hey, let's bring this building back to commerce, you know, as a potential affordable housing piece just doesn't pencil out, even with subsidy that's currently there. With the vagrants, you know, coming in and doing what they're doing, you know, from a pure pen to pencil on paper, the deal doesn't pan out on pro forma basis. And so that's a part of, you know, obviously the long-term plan with the hotel, but there were some interim plans to say, hey, how do we bring this property back? And the foundation stance is, you know, preservation until we get a long-term plan, but to invest dollars into a development at this current state would not make financial or business sense, even with subsidies from the city or any affordable, you know, gap help as well too.
I have a question.
Commissioner Bruno, yes.
You currently have control over all the other vacant lots on the square?
I wouldn't say all, but we do have control over, I would say, several other large pieces. There are a few that we're in conversations with, but we do have control of the land to develop the hotel that we need. You know, we do want to expand that a little bit further, but if we didn't get those other lots, we wouldn't be able to move forward with the current development.
The footprint of this building isn't really all that great. So how much space do you really need for this hotel?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
I said the footprint of this building isn't all that huge. So how much space do you really need for your hotel?
Well, I think the location of this building in the lot is what's prohibited, right? It's right direct middle of the block. So if it was a little bit further down, it may not be as big of a deal, but you know, this is positioning within the footprint of the building is what's prohibitive, specifically to traffic mitigation, our entryway that we've got, you know, kind of sandwiched in here on this lot.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for commissioners to the applicant?
I'm wondering if y'all would consider
Roberta,
moving
one more.
the building further down the block so it didn't interfere with your entry.
We have considered, we've talked to Orleans Shoring, a few other shoring companies, but the prohibitive piece of these energy lines are in front of our building and makes it difficult and I would say impossible, but very, very difficult for us to move the building
but
anywhere down.
And
If you're
again,
gonna move it down the block, you're not crossing the lines. You're just going, you're still on where you got all that vacant space. You just move it further down the block. You're saying if it wasn't right where it
I think-
was.
and Commissioner Bruno, I asked these questions as well. I think the applicant said they reached out to I'm just going to recap a little bit and correct me if I'm wrong on these, but you've reached out to other organizations to donate the building. They're designed, given traffic flow, the design is optimized, I'm assuming, given a new construction, new site, and not preserving the historic structure. You're not interested in moving the historic structure. whether it's on the site or to a new site somewhere else in town, which often Commissioner Bruno, we saw Carrollton Courthouse, we approved that both backwards, we approved moving those buildings. The buildings didn't make it through that. There's several other applications we've had in the last few years. And so we often don't recommend that unless it's in special case. And there's a willing recipient of that building who's going to take on the cost and the burden for moving it and restoring that property. So I think the answer, Commissioner Bruno, is that their design doesn't include, they haven't really dug into this. Well, you've evaluated the options and they're requesting demolition to optimize, I assume, the development that's proposed. The only other question I had is the development, are the building plans filed yet?
that we're in pre-design right now, schematic,
Okay.
I would say. So, I mean, I think there is opportunity to look at that, but I would say we haven't left any rock unturned at this point. We are open, to thoughts, but we are in schematic right
So I'm going to propose something. I don't know if y'all are open to this. And given that you're so early in design and generally if we denied or even if we recommended approval of this, we would request that the demolition doesn't take place until like all your full building permits are in place, because you could imagine you've got a great story now. You tell us this, your funding falls apart, your development team falls apart and it doesn't move forward. It sounds like you still have a fair amount of time before you actually need this approval and to take down this building. And so I don't know if you'd be open to it, but just deferring this or potentially withdrawing the application until you have more detailed plans and have looked at the design further. Because I mean, it sounds like if you have a 200-room key hotel and you're in pre-design, you probably have a year before you'll be ready to file permits and get building plans anyway.
We have some concern that this is in a partial control district and that's beyond the scope of the HDLC since we only have jurisdiction over the demolition.
That's fine.
But our attorney might be able to weigh in on that. We're not entirely certain.
But as a partial demolition, we can still, if the motion, well, I guess that if we make the motion for denial, just encourage the council member not to allow the demolition, if it's
That would
it's
be a good
overrode.
recommendation.
Yeah, so basically, I'm just suggesting that they don't, if it is overrode at council, that there's a way to, request that the demolition is not granted until they have full building permits for this project, which is what we see in full control districts.
And we'd be open to that on the approval side as well too, right? That was a condition of moving forward that, we could demo the building until we had full, permits from the city.
But again, I guess given we would need to know that you have more on the table to offer for the discussion, because right now you're in pre-design and again, it's a partial demolition district. So that also might be from the attorney side that we can't review.
Can you repeat the question or rephrase it rather?
So often when we are in full control districts, I'm going to look at the staff. We do see the proposed development on the other side in terms of consideration for it. I guess what I'm asking is that if it's possible, given they're in pre-design and they're on a 200-room key hotel, they have a while before they're actually ready to file for building permits. So they have a second consultant, and this is maybe where I know a bit too much on this stuff. They have a second consultant who's at the table to move this project forward. They did not get the council member support previously. And so they withdrew the application, and the second application, I'm just seeing if there's a way to work this out so that you don't end up at an appeal process. I'm just asking the applicant if they're willing to either withdraw or defer the application until they're further in the design. And I don't know, Commissioner Clark, if that would
I
help.
think that makes some sense.
I'm
Yes,
just- I'm
especially if you.
If there's a way for the commission to, for us to be able to review that so that we are able to put forth a motion for denial or, to accept the proposal with more information on the table.
Yeah, my question would be, how long can we defer it for?
That would be to the staff. I don't know the answer to that question.
The commission has to take action, I believe, within 60 days of the application, but deferring the application is an action. So you could defer it a month. And as long as you don't put in, I would imagine, I'm not the attorney here, but if you didn't put into the language that you're requesting the redevelopment plans, that you're just deferring until you have more information.
Correct. That's it. We're just requesting for deferral. I would assume 60 days would be required for the development team, or are y'all on a timeline?
So don't want when we get into the financials of this, like this is a bond issue, like there's other aspects of the property. That's why this fell first, because it was to get the financing in place and the capital. It was, okay, this building, we need to address what's going on with this building first. And then the design is preliminary, and then everything was going to fall into place in terms of the financing, the bond issue, like the things that I already mentioned. So 60 days, yes, like we definitely, thank you. I think that's a good
That give you
compromise.
deferral?
But just, I wanted to preface it with, this is a big picture type project, and it's part of a larger development. So, there are other details that are kind of binding us to what we can and cannot do. But the 60 days, yes.
Understood. Okay.
Is that enough time to make sure you have all the land ready? You have control of all the land you need.
Yeah, the land is not a hurdle for us right now. I think what we would want to know is, hey, when we come back in 60 days, what are the details and nuances that you guys and ladies would want to see to help better prepare you for your decision?
And I guess the question would be, and maybe the deferral is not necessary. A question is just, if you came back in 60 days, would there be the option to potentially save this building and not demolish it and or try to incorporate it in the design? Right? Or is it going to be that you come back in 60 days with further development that, like, we've looked at it 10 different ways. We don't feel like that's possible. We're still requesting demolition of the building. And I don't know that that would actually change the motion that's on the floor. So again, I'm trying to create a discussion here for commissioners, again, so that, because there's nothing more discouraging than when this commission upholds a staff recommendation or the conversation's been had, and then we go to council and there's an appeal and an overturn. And all of this discussion is not out in the open. So, Commissioner Bressler, yeah,
To ask a question.
absolutely, yes.
Okay. So you mentioned that moving the house is not really a good idea, and then incorporating it into the project isn't really a good idea. What about building the project around it and leaving it intact and redoing it, and not have it part of the project, but have it as a house, perhaps for people that work there or something along those lines, but as a residential house as is, and building the project, just carving it out?
Commissioner Bressler, that is exactly what I've been asking for the last little while. So I'm really excited that you're asking the same question.
Yeah, I think, look, I think in a deferral sense, I don't have a problem with, going back to our team and exploring some of these options. I think this is a little bit different than a more private. This is a tax exempt bond issue with very stringent investors, and those type of nuances affect, our ability to go and raise that type of capital. And I think it is prohibitive when we're talking about the type of hotel. And I don't know if they have the rendering that the show here, kind of how our thoughts and what I feel, looks like. And look, we can go back and take 30 days or 60 days to explore that. I'm not optimistic, but I am willing to have that conversation, I would say, at this.
We just want our cake and eat it too. We want to see the project happen, but we also want to see the house.
I get it
change.
100%. And I think we've exhausted, or even over the last year, a lot of those options. And I'm not saying, I'm willing to go back to the well, is what I'm saying. To be able to hear you guys out and show good faith effort that we are, trying to do our best.
Okay. I mean, I think given the timeline for the project, is that it sounds like you're willing to take a 60-day deferral.
Yes.
Okay. And you're willing to explore the potential of saving the house in the development if at all possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be able to, I think, come back and in more, hearing individually from each one of you, your concerns, to be able to provide more in detail, other than we tried and we couldn't, if that is the outcome that comes, right? Because I know you guys want to see more details and what that looks like.
Okay. I appreciate that, the willingness of your team to do that. So, Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for continuing to work with us. And I hope we can have our cake and eat it too, as Commissioner Rissler said. So I'll make a motion for a 60-day deferral
Or two meetings.
or 2 meetings, I suppose, from now.
Second that.
Commissioner Clark made the motion, Commissioner Bressler seconds. Is there any public comment on this application? Any additional public comment? No public comment, no additional public comment. Any further discussion from commissioners? Okay, with that, we make a motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We'll see you back in 60 days. We appreciate you trying to work with us on this. So thank you very much.
so much.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Lost my place. Item B, 740 Jenna Street. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Adrienne Catalano with the firm Cicada, and address is 1807 Barone Street.
Thank you. The staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
This is an application for the demolition of a contributing rated one-story single-family residential building to grade in partial control uptown. FEMA survey research indicates the original building was constructed between 1900 and 1910. However, it likely first appears in the 1893 Sanborn map as a double with a residential and commercial unit and wraparound corner awning. The original building has been altered over the years, but appears to have retained a majority of its original style, scale, massing, roof form, and footprint to this day. It is not clear when modifications at the recessed front porch were completed. However, based on the craftsman style wood windows and doors of this areas, it was likely within the period of significance for the district. The one-story residential building appears to retain some of its original character-defining architectural and exterior details, such as historic craftsman style wood 3/2 windows, multi-light casement windows, doors, side lights, and transom. While the existing windows appear atypical in size and header height, they do appear to have been extant on the building during the period of significance. However, based on the offset location of the front entry door, it's unclear if these are the original locations or whether these were adjusted when the building was converted to a single residential unit or later when the front porch was modified. The stucco front porch column also does not appear to be original. HDLC Inspector Daniel Seil performed an interior and exterior inspection on November 29th and determined the building to be in fair condition. On the exterior, the roof shingles are in excellent condition and the attic was dry and well maintained. Some of the masonry piers are damaged and may require replacement. However, the majority are in fair condition and would only require repointing. The masonry chain wall was in good condition and the stucco well maintained. At the interior, some areas of floor structure will require sistering or other repairs. However, rot and termite damage was not visible and most of the joists were in good condition. The current asbestos siding is in excellent condition and continues to provide secure and watertight building envelope. The wood windows are also in good condition and would likely only require reglazing or paint. While the current building appears to have changed use and was modified, it does continue to retain much of its original character-defining architectural features to this day, and its style, scale, massing, roof form, and footprint continue to contribute to the two ensemble of the surrounding historic district. Additionally, the building sits on a 65-foot wide double lot, which makes the historic structure more vulnerable to requests for demolition, as the lot has sufficient width to be subdivided by right for construction of 2 new replacement buildings. Based on this and the contributing rating of the existing building, staff recommends denial of the request for demolition to grade. Staff also recommends the applicant reconsider their previous request for a renovation and Camelback addition, as this more limited scope of partial demolition work would be more appropriate to the building and its current condition and would allow more of its historic building fabric to remain.
Thank you. Ms. Catalano, do you wish to address the commission?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Our firm strongly believes in the mission of the HDLC, and one of our partners is actually on the CBD Commission. We often encourage clients to save historic structures and pursue historic tax credits whenever possible. That being said, our professional opinion is that the house in question at 740 Jenna Street does not retain any of the original architectural characteristics of the corner store that we believe was originally on site. The 1893 Sanborn map shows the original building with a common corner store typology with a wraparound sidewalk awning and attached dwelling unit fronting Jenna Street. We believe the building in its current form has been altered so significantly since its original inception that none of the original characteristics remain. The awning has been removed. The corner store entry has been removed. The residential unit entry along Jenna Street is no longer there and has been replaced with windows. It's unclear whether Many of the openings along Constant Street are original, and there's no remaining brick chimneys that were once there. The owners of the building are a local architect and designer who have done extensive research into the history of the property to find significant features worth preserving. And it's our opinion that having the owners forced to keep this structure would set a bad precedent, as the building has been so significantly altered since its original form.
Thank you. This is, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead. I have 2 comment cards from the owners. So Mary Grace Burgess, Patrick Fess, I'll let y'all roll the dice for who comes up here first. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mary Grace Burgess, owner of the property, also a professionally licensed architect in the city. Thank you guys for listening to us.
Will you state your address for the, did you state your?
Oh, sorry, current address is 520 Jenna Street.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, great. So like I said, I'm the owner. I'm also a professionally licensed architect in the city. I've spent about 11 years now working on historic renovations, mostly commercial, worked with HDLC, Bucharest Commission, SHPO, successful tax credit applications. We understand and fully support the structures in place to preserve the fabric of the city. And so we're not taking this lightly. We've done our due diligence on this one. Like it was mentioned, we originally submitted for partial demolition, dripped the plans accordingly. Those plans have not changed. What has changed is that after going through, looking at the condition of the structure and what it's going to take to get to that point, it's become very apparent that there just isn't historic significance worth saving at this point. It's been so significantly altered. It's modified beyond any recognizable historic character. Adrian, if we could put on the screen, did a analysis of the corner store typology directly in our neighborhood, one of which is literally right down the street, shows that this house likely looked just like this, but has been modified so much over the course of time that it's unrecognizable. And, you know, if you're thinking back to all these times the renovations have happened, it's likely that the renovations would not have met HDLC criteria at the time that it was being done, because so much has changed. So we also we looked through the evolution of the Sanborn maps. You know, we did drawings to show how it's evolved over time. The sidewalk condition is actually still looks to be original, showing 2 entrances to the building that don't match up with the building itself. And, you know, at the end of the day, sorry.
I'll let you wrap up.
Well,
sorry, that's time.
Can Patrick defer time to me? Is that an option? I just have one more.
That's fine. Sorry about that.
Okay. So, you know, as you guys know, just because the structure possesses some wood windows, that doesn't mean that it's automatically architecturally significant. So, you know, at the end of the day, we are planning to maintain the massing of the building. We're even going to keep the front porch that's not, you know, we're saying is not significant. We're going to keep it anyway. We just really need, you know, we're trying to do this the right way. We need to raise the building to above BFE. We need to redo the structure. It's significant moisture intrusion, significantly rotted sills and joists, things like that. We've gotten estimates to rebuild this thing, shore it up, rebuild underneath it, and it's just beyond something that we can do. And so we're just asking, you know, this is going to be our single family home. We're planning to live there. We're not going to subdivide the lots. Just asking for your support in this today.
Thank you. I think I'm going to implement our own rule of silencing our cell phones. Okay. All right. I know. I got you. Thank you, Ms. Burgess. Patrick Fess, do you wish to come and address the commission?
Yeah, I just wanted Patrick Fess with current residence 520 Jenna Street. I just want to say one more quick thing. Mary Grace pretty much covered, and Adrian as well, everything we wanted to present today. But we also went to several of our neighbors and met with them and showed them exactly, you know, what we're planning on doing with the property, got their, you know, kind of gauged their reaction and their feelings about the existing property. And so one thing I just wanted to emphasize is that we have done our due diligence with trying to make what's existing work through the estimates we've solicited and the contractors that we've had come out and to look at the property. And we've also, catered to the emotions of the surrounding community, which we're already a part of, to kind of gauge what their reaction would be. And so that's just one thing I wanted to emphasize.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more. We've got one more public comment. Susan Johnson. Please step to the mic, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Susan Johnson, 2822 LePage Street. I wanted to bring up two issues with this proposed demolition. And first of all, this isn't personal at all. You seem really nice people, and I can see that you've done your work in talking to neighbors. It's just that, and for heaven's sakes, you're obviously not Jim Brown III. But I get a little nervous about whether this is an uptown tear down, so to speak. A house bought to be torn down. History, 1898, this building was, let's just say it, a notions and small wares house, store owned by a Mrs. Vey. 1940, that was 1898, 1949, it was a double. Okay. Number one, this tendency to buy homes and tear them down. Okay, I know there was a Camelback considered briefly. All right, withdrawn. Number two, what bothers me more is why is the chair of the CBD HDLC on this project? I don't understand. You all recuse yourselves as architects from projects. Why is he involved if his firm?
So
I don't understand that.
well, wrap up your comments. I'll address that following. Yeah, no.
That's it. But please understand, I just have to say what I said. I really don't want to make more enemies, but that's it.
To the comment about the chair of the CBD of the that chair is a practicing architect. I'm also a practicing architect. If this project had come to our practice and it was heard at this commission, I would be recusing myself. This project is not in front of the CBD HDLC commission. Therefore, there is not a commissioner here to recuse. So I would just like to clarify that in terms of architects who are practicing. Their firm is represented here and is taking a stance on the project, be it whether this commission agrees or disagrees with that stance. So just to clarify, that chair and their practice has not done anything incorrect in taking on this project. I'd like to see if there's any additional public comment on this project first. No additional public comment. I have quite a few questions and clarifications just to make sure that the commission is thinking about this fully. This is Uptown Partial District. The only thing we have jurisdiction over is the historic structure. If the historic structure is demolished, we no longer have control over the site and anything that gets reviewed. So we cannot look at the future plans that are there. And it cannot be considered in terms of if you are building, you could tell us today that you're building exactly the same footprint and tomorrow change your mind and build a mini mansion. You could sell off and subdivide this lot and do multiple things to it, which we've seen from other applicants, which has happened. You can probably understand that in terms of setting precedent. So I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind. We only have control over the demolition request for this. I would like staff to just go through why y'all are recommending denial of this, just point by point. And that also if the Camelback application was presented, most likely that would be approved.
Yes, if the Camelback was over 50%, it would need approval, but generally if it's 2 historic rooms back, staff recommends approval. I don't recall where exactly the Camelback request had fallen previously, but basically for the demolition request, staff initially does research to determine if the building is historic. Sanborn maps seem to show that the existing building that's there is the same that was present in 1883,
I think it was 1909, but was altered from 1883, 1893.
1893. Sorry, lost my place here.
But the single family dwelling.
Yeah, and it was converted to the single family dwelling between 1893 and 1909. So it does look like that the existing building is there. I think if you look at one of the photos, there's a rear infill that you can see from the street on the right side, and that corresponds with the original footprint matching the one in the later. So the building has been altered. It's clear. But it looks like all of the existing windows and the things that are currently still on the building were put in and installed in the period of significance, which would be around like 1930, 1935 for this area. So staff typically does not recommend approval for demolition of contributing rated buildings per the guidelines.
Thank you. And I will say, we see a number of these. We get a lot of requests for it's less expensive to go back and build brand new. You can raise the building, you can move the exterior walls further from the property lines. For this commission, that still does not mean that the approval is granted. Sorry.
And could I also just add that
Yeah.
HDLC did do an interior and exterior inspection and determine the building to be in fair condition. So that just goes to the condition of the building today. And the commission we've also recommended denial for buildings that were in worse condition and more highly altered. But the fact is, if they're contributing rating and they still retain some of their, original like roof forms, some of the exterior details, massing, then it's basically a recommendation that it not be demolished.
Understood. This is Commissioner Bruno's district. And I'm also gonna let other architects on the commission. I'm looking over at Commissioner Hackenberg for a comment at some point, but Commissioner Bruno, do you have any questions or comments?
I think what Miss Johnson might have been talking about was that we seem to have seen a lot of acquisitions of corner properties on wide lots. And a lot of people just want to tear them down.
Commissioner Bruno, can you please speak up? And everyone, please make sure to speak directly into the microphone. I think individuals in the back are having trouble hearing.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Okay, doesn't sound like it is. Okay.
We can hear you.
You can hear me now? Okay, good. My statement was a statement more than a question. So we see a lot of applications for people who buy corner lots or any kind of lot, actually, but mostly corner lots that are extra wide and apply to demolish the property on them so they can subdivide it and redevelop both lots. So that would be a little bit of a concern here. What plans do you have for the side lot?
So actually, would love to speak to that. So we actually live 2 blocks down from this property, and we recently renovated that house within HDLC guidelines, did everything, partial control. We found this property because we walk our dog there every day. And one of the things that we don't like about our current location is that we have no yard. We just had a baby. We have a growing family. We want a yard uptown, we want to stay uptown. And so the reason we bought it was to keep the house, the current massing, add a Camelback to have a little more space and to have that yard. That's why we did it. We have absolutely no plans, never even crossed our minds to subdivide it, do any of that. Like Patrick said, we met with every neighbor right around us. They were thrilled at the idea of us doing this. They gave us their signature without asking barely any questions. We had the plans with us. One person asked to see it. So, we're there. We've lived in that neighborhood for 7 years now. It's our home. It's going to be our home for a while. This isn't a situation where we bought it to demolish it and subdivide it, sell it off. I mean, I know that you can't take that into account necessarily, but I promise that's how we got here. And like Dennis said, we did submit for the renovation permit. We have a way to make it work within the current boundaries of the site. That's our plan. It's already drawn up. We're, hoping to go get it permitted as soon as we can get through what we need to get through and go through the processes. So, that's what I can offer.
Are you open to salvaging any of?
Absolutely.
The
Even we would love to salvage the windows. I mean, like I said, we we're gonna keep the porch. We want to salvage the windows. We want to do whatever we can to keep as much of the historic fabric. It's not gonna be a modern looking house. We don't do that. We love the historic nature of the building is,
Again,
whatever's left.
Just
it's
gonna make
just
a reminder,
that-
the commission doesn't have jurisdiction over
yeah.
what goes
You're
back.
right.
So
You're right.
just making sure
But I'm just saying-
everyone's aware.
Do you want to salvage the
You know,
windows? That's-
this is a situation where anything that is worth keeping, we are keeping it. And, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the due diligence that we've put into this to determine that it's just not what it was. I mean, if it was that original corner store, we wouldn't be here. We would love it. We'd keep it. But at this point, it's just not part of the historic fabric of that neighborhood, and everyone agrees with us in the surrounding area.
I'd like to move that we approve the application for demolition.
Oh.
More people
We
want.
have a motion on the floor. Commissioner Hackenberg, I think I was looking.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment as I walk past this home a lot of, quite often. And yes, it's been altered. It probably was altered when they made it into a corner store. It probably had a previous life to that. We don't know for sure. But as has been pointed out by the staff, much of the history of this building is there in front of you. You see areas where they were infilled. It's clearly visible that changes were made. And it's clearly visible that the things weren't changed. The roof line has largely remained intact. A porch was added into the front, but that's something that can be undone. And we have had buildings that had been stripped of most of the architectural detailing, but retained most of their form that we have not allowed to be demolished for that very reason. The presence on the street corner. Well, what you plan to go back with may be absolutely wonderful. That is not, unfortunately, not part of our purview. And we have to operate under the assumption that once this building's gone, it's gone, and we have no control over what goes back. I think it could be a charming little building with, the right investment made into it. I kind of see, compared to other things that we have disallowed, I think allowing this is a little out of line.
Could I respond?
Yes, but briefly, because I would like to have we have a motion we have a partial motion. If you withdrew your motion. Okay, yep, you can respond.
I would just like to say that within the allowable demolition, the part in the back of the house that has been closed in would be allowed to be demolished. So that part that's, technically historic, it's been covered up, so it's not part of consideration anymore. And that 50% could go. So that's another consideration that we've been looking at. Also, the front porch, we're allowed to take off the asbestos siding. We're allowed to take, that column is not deemed as historic. The windows and doors can be replaced in kind. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is the framing and trying to shore up that framing, raise the house to base flood elevation, try to keep all that framing intact. We can take the shingles off, replace them, So at the end of the day, we're trying to hold up some framing and do all of this to get the house to be livable for us. And, what is there that we're saving at that point? We're going to keep the windows, we'll keep windows and doors, we'll refurbish them where they can, if we can't, we'll replace them in kind, we're going to do all that. But at the end of the day, when you really look at what's allowed versus what we're proposing, I know you can't look at the proposed, but what's allowed, a lot of it goes away.
I'll say what we're saving is the original building and the original building fabric. If you came in and built an exact replica, it wouldn't be that building. It wouldn't be historic. It would no longer be considered historic in our district. And were you to come back with a renovation of facade that passed the 50% threshold, I think we would be very amenable to seeing what you came up with.
No, the problem is at the front facade, we don't have proof that that's actually what it looked like. We have a lot of evidence to the.
Well, there's some evidence from the Sanborn maps and there's already that's in there.
Porch is not.
And again, there's some discrepancies in the front door. We understand that. That's something that you can work with staff on. We're not saying this building has to stay exactly as it is. I just don't see a full demolition as being appropriate in this case.
And I think just to speak to the applicant and hopefully close up, just to give clarification. So essentially, we only have jurisdiction over the historic building in its current location. If you go back to file your permits, we don't know if you're moving it 2 feet over, 1 foot back, 3 feet back. That is no longer in its exact location. And again, if you remove, again, the staff has suggested and recommended the Camelback application, and that would be something that would be approvable. Given how many demolitions we've seen and the condition of other houses that have come in front of us, I will say this is not one of the worst ones that we've seen. We saw one earlier that racked. We've seen quite a few others where the interior is completely torn apart. So I'm not a voting member of the commission.
I have a question. Have you
yeah,
considered the Camelback? I mean, we keep talking around it,
Yeah.
but have you? And
Yes,
so
we
what would your?
submitted it. We have it drawn up, and that's actually what we're building.
And can you
It's just
clarify?
that we want to rebuild the material.
And so in terms of it being set back, have you guys seen that and you were totally?
Building. Like it's 2 rooms back, but it's hard to say without seeing the plans again. I apologize.
It was.
So they come
And-
back. that would be fine.
They can, but I think it sounds, I mean, asking to both come back with a Camelback, raise it, and then reconfigure the front of the building, but you want to build new, essentially, is what you're asking for, because you've done your due diligence and do not believe that the building is worth saving in its current configuration.
Okay.
This commission does not have to agree with that professional opinion with,
I see. I understand.
I mean, we see this often on many other many other projects. I would encourage the applicant to explore maintaining the first 2 rooms and doing the Camelback, which is what staff had requested. But again, this is at the pleasure of the commission. So
Are you on more than 50% on the Camelback?
I just want to say one quick thing, clarification that we're kind of dancing around. The applicants, the owners actually submitted plans to retain those front 2 rooms, am I correct? And add a new Camelback on the rear as their initial proposal. And once they got further into inspections of the current house, they realized that there was a lot more damage and foundation work that would have been necessary for them to do to get it up to a livable standard. And that's what led them to the decision, along with the historic research, to try to demolish the whole structure instead of doing that Camelback as they originally intended.
thank you. And we receive professional opinions a lot of times that conflict with what the inspectors, we work very closely with the staff and the inspectors and what their opinions are as well, because they have the purview of looking at everything across the district as well. So Alex, thank you for allowing Alex Nassar to, enter the property and take a look, but it seems like he also,
Yeah.
what was his clarification?
Daniel confirmed the building was in fair condition.
Daniel, okay, I'm sorry, Daniel did the inspection.
I think that's contrary, like you said, to the private inspections that they had done.
And we
previously.
are fully aware private inspections can often be manipulated as well. And some of those things are not necessarily, we see a number of different inspection reports as well. I'm gonna encourage the commission, if there's any further comment or a motion. We do have a number of other items to get through today. Stephanie made a motion.
Yes, and I'm not a person who ever likes tearing down a building, but I would recommend that we approve your application.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Okay, without a second to that motion fails. Do we have an alternative motion? I would like to send this project off into the world with a decision from the commission.
I will make a motion to deny the request.
Thank you, Commissioner Hackenberg. Do we have a second to that request? Commissioner Green? Can you provide clarification as to why you are providing this motion?
I'm upholding the staff's recommendation based on their research, and that the building, while altered, much of the alteration was in the period of significance, and the building is in reasonably good condition.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment on this application? Any further discussion with commissioners on this application? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Commissioner Bruno is opposed to the motion. The motion carries. Your application has been denied. by the HDLC Commission, you have 10 calendar days from the date of this meeting to appeal to City Council in writing. The staff will furnish you with the details of that appeals process. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item C, 815 3rd Street. Is the applicant present? This is code enforcement. City of New Orleans is the applicant. Oh, yes, wonderful. Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm sure. Tifa Harris, Deputy City Attorney for the City of New Orleans, representing code enforcement.
Thank you. Staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
This is an application for the demolition of a contributing rated one-story single-family residential building to grade and full control Irish Channel. The one-story shotgun appears to have retained its scale, massing, siding, roof form, and footprint to this day from the 1887 Sanborn map, and it first appears on the 1875 Robinson Atlas. The building has maintained several of its original character-defining details, including wood windows and decorative brackets, and wood siding on the front facade. However, the building has been encapsulated with vinyl siding. Pulling back of the vinyl siding revealed the building to be constructed of barge board. The HDLC inspector found the building to be in poor condition from a visual exterior inspection, citing some noticeable deterioration with bulges in the vinyl siding and some sagging in the roof. However, there were no signs of complete failure or evidence of termites at the exterior. Without an interior inspection, it was difficult to determine the amount of deterioration that the building may have sustained. As such, staff cannot recommend approval of the demolition at this time. If an interior inspection can be performed, the staff recommendation may change based on the conditions found. Staff does recognize that the massive amount of vegetation, the deteriorated roof structure, and the improperly boarded windows and door openings will cause the building to rapidly deteriorate if not rehabilitated, but that rehabilitation is not out of the question. Staff recommends denial.
Thank you. To the applicant, do you wish to address the commission?
I'm sure.
Thank you.
So the property was initially inspected by code enforcement in June of 2022 after complaints from the neighborhood about the impact the property was having on the neighborhood. At the hearing, the property was found to have 6 violations, including to the protective treatment, siding, and masonry, weatherboards, and door frames. In addition, the hearing officer granted a demolition order permitting code enforcement to potentially demolish the property. And the property was re-inspected on November 21st, 2022, and was found to have the same violations without any improvements made. And that is all that I have at this time.
Thank you. We do have public comment on this application. Questions for the applicant?
I had a question for the applicant.
Mr.
So
Russ.
the city does not own this property.
No, city does not own this property.
Is that typical? You don't take ownership of that?
No. What occurs is that per ordinance, if the property is found to have violations and they're not taken care of it after a certain amount of time, in the course of the hearing, the city employees may ask the hearing officer for permission to abate the violations at the owner's expense. And then in this instance, and looking at the title, I believe that the owner is deceased. And it appears that no succession has been done in order for the estate to be passed on to another. So there are probably some complicated issues that have led to its neglect. And it looks like there's not probably any hope for the future until that is resolved and the city takes some type of intervention or action.
There's no owner of.
No, there is no owner of record that is living, and it appears that the heirs have not come forward to open succession.
So who's gonna take care of the vacant lot?
The city, you're saying.
Commissioner Bruno, do you want to, can you speak up?
Yeah, so this will leave a vacant lot there. Who will take care of the vacant lot?
Well, the plan is that when we take this type of action, what we like to do is make sure to transfer it to another person's hands, typically through a sheriff's sale. So that probably is going to be our plan for the structure. I mean, not for the structure, for the parcel after demolition.
Does the staff want to go into an interior inspection?
Well, this Commissioner Bruno, the staff is recommending that we do not demolish the structure and deny the application for demolition.
But
Commissioner Wakeman.
so But denying the application for demolition, listening to what the attorney has said, it just leaves this property in limbo and to deteriorate further, it seems to me. So I do think it's a valid question. Can access be granted to the interior for inspection to determine whether in fact a more detailed inspection upholds the viability of the building or determines that demolition is appropriate? Is it possible?
I have a question for
So
this.
hold on, there's a lot of questions on the floor. I'm going to recap Commissioner Wakeman's question. So your question is, would the applicant be willing to allow the staff access to the interior of the property to perform an inspection?
I believe that we would have to take further steps in order to legally get that access. And we most likely would have to get some type of, some type of warrants of entry, because it does it does appear to be boarded. So if it was actually open, according to ordinance, we would be able to, look at if it was open to everyone, in other words, we could go inside. But if it's not open to everyone and we have to actually remove elements in order to get inside, then we would have to do something further to get that access for code enforcement or for any city employee.
Thank you. Okay, next question to the staff. So I think what's everyone's dancing around is, so we have two options on the option is of denial of the application. Can you explain what happens in this process if we do uphold the if we deny the application for demolition? Would the property still go to sheriff's sale? What happens?
Well, yeah, that's my question for the attorney.
I didn't know if the staff could answer this or if we can go back to the.
I would defer to, I mean,
Yeah.
in previous cases, we've requested that buildings go, perhaps rather than being demolished, get moved to sheriff's sale in the hopes that it could be rehabilitated. I think there's a lot of neighborhood concern regarding this project or this property, which is why code enforcement took this direction. But Latifa can answer that question.
Thank you.
Demolition or sheriff's sale, they're not mutually exclusive remedies. They can happen at the same time. They can happen, one can precede the other. So there are the option for sheriff's sale is still on the table based on the fact that there is a code enforcement judgment. However, I believe sheriff's sale can take 6 months to a year due to the fact that we have absentee defendants and we have to appoint curators to represent them in the civil district court case. And so given that, can the property, can the condition of the property sustain that time period? And that's what we were thinking of when we made this application and move forward in this direction, with the idea that we would do both. And we also are concerned about whether it would be a good candidate in the state that is in for sheriff's sale. So a no bid, no sale, may leave us in the same place and may make things last longer. And we may end up in this place anyway, where we're asking for it to be demolished.
So I have a question. You said they can happen in conjecture usually. Are they happening in conjecture now? Are you doing a sheriff's sale while you do this?
We are going to, so after the demolition, that is what.
No, I'm saying, you're saying they can happen in conjecture without having the demolition. You can do the sheriff's sale while you're trying to, clean the record or do the rest. I'm asking, is it already happening? Are you trying to do a sheriff's sale now, or you're only going with this avenue now?
We are looking at this avenue now,
Okay.
but after what I'm saying is that we can take the steps that are needed for demolition. At the same time, we could file a sheriff's sale. The review work is the same. So we are poised to take this to sheriff's sale, but no, it has not occurred yet.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so commissioners, we do have two
Thank you.
looks like neighbors who are here and would like to comment on this. Let's see, Brenda Keen.
I think that's.
Thank you. Please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Brenda DeLon Keen. I live at 625 Aris Avenue in Metairie. The home next door, 819 3rd Street, was the home my mother purchased before I was even thought of. And we've owned that home consistently. We have battled the house next door at 815 because of the overgrowth of the cat's claw. It cost me $1,000 minimum every year to remove the cat's claw that attaches to our house. We have a big root in our house because it grew up through the bottom and it came from next door. She planted it. Unfortunately, Eloise is no longer. I found at one point, I know you can't take my word for it, but she is deceased and she had no children. She was a single professional that lived there. My family knew her, but she did 0 renovations or repairs to that house since 1980. We have termites, we have the cat's claw, and now we have vagrants. You can go into the house because somebody just broke in and moved all of Eloise's belongings to the curb. And now they're coming into our house. They've stolen furniture that we had inside and the mantles from our home. And it's the combination. I understand my mother owned the house for a long time and wouldn't do anything with it. My sister and I have been desperately trying. That's our house right there. But after today, everybody who owns a house in the historic district should come to one of these meetings, because seeing that house fall tells me what I'm getting into. And I think that we've both decided, because of personal circumstances, that we're now going to try to sell that. And that house has had vinage in the, like, you had to do this while she was living there. They finally moved her out, but I don't know where she ended up. So my 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comments. Joe Nemetz. Nemetz, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
How are you all today? This day of infamy, December 7th. I'm against tearing it down.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Oh,
before we
I'm
start.
Joe Nemetz,
What's your address?
1934 Marengo.
Thank
I own the buildings to the right and the back of this. And this is an architecturally nice building. It has gingerbread in it. It's truly a New Orleans building. So I'm totally against demolishing it. Yes, the lady that lived there was really a pain in the butt, but she had no kids and she died. So I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I sure would not like it, have it demolished. That's all I need to say.
Thank you for your comments. All right, commissioners, one more public comment. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Larry Schmidt. I live at 1217 Pleasant Street, and I'm here on another matter. But I have been involved with properties like this for many years when I managed a community development corporation. And there are several opportunities available to the city other than demolition. The house could be offered at expropriation. It could be offered at a sheriff's sale to expedite the sale of the property. It probably will go for very little money. And I think there are people out there that would be interested in acquiring the property and renovating it. So I would urge the city to look at those other options rather than demolition. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any additional public comment on this application? Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Bressler, he's ready.
Question for the city. I agree with the last spokesman that perhaps trying to sell the building as is maybe an option, but you said there's a long lead time because of the legal matters. Is there anything the city could do to secure the property so it's not attracting vagrants, it's not growing vines in other people's houses, things along those lines, to buy time so that it's those issues that were just mentioned, boarding up the house and taking care of the vegetation or whatever the issues are, could be held at bay until you could get it sold?
So while we're exploring other options, what the city currently has available as a program for abatement is a lot abatement program. So we can come and we can maybe abate debris and high grass around the lot, but that is what we have the program that we have currently. Not that there aren't options for other programs, but at this time, that is what the department does. So, in terms of making sure that no one goes in there and those type of things, that's probably, not something that can happen today. Although, like I said, those are all options that we're exploring in future as we continue the fight against blight, basically.
Commissioner King?
I would say nothing would really happen today, so it would all take a certain amount of time, but I think what he's asking is about boarding it up and then pushing it forward. I mean, I think we talk around it, but there's not really, outside of raising it, there's not really, that's the only like plan that's really, I think a lot of work has gone into at this point.
I'm sorry, can you clarify what the question? I'm sorry.
So would the city be open to the idea of closing it off and not taking it down? It's like the last gentleman just said in terms of those other ones.
I think the city's willing, you know, to go with whatever's decided. You're not going to give up on trying to find some resolution for this property because we know that it is a hazard and a nuisance to the community.
Okay.
And so we're not going to give up on it. If this avenue is closed, we'll continue with the other parts of our plan to continue to get the property, you know, back into commerce. But I will point out that when it comes to sheriff's sale, there is no guarantee that whoever purchases the property will do anything to the property, and there's no way that we can make them. It is to the highest bidder. And if the person speculates but does not have financing or money to rehab the property, then there's nothing that we can do to make them.
Yeah.
So this is not like, just because we take it to sheriff's sale doesn't mean that that's going to mean that this property is rehabbed.
Understood.
Understood.
We're fully aware of that. Thank you for reminding
Thank
us
you.
of that as well. Commissioner Hackenberg.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because I'm very cognizant of the issues that the neighbors have had to put up with, when these properties are abandoned like this. And I mean, I really would like to have, you know, an interior inspection on this to get a little better handle on the structural, aspects and how sound this building may or may not be before deciding on whether or not to permanently remove it. It sounds like from the neighbors that access may actually be available, given the vagrants pulling the boards off. I would like to make a motion to defer this in 30 days to and see if we can get the staff and inspector some access into this building to better assess the condition of it. I mean, ultimately, I would love to see this go to sheriff's sale and hopefully someone purchase it who can either rehab it, or if they find they can't rehab it, we'll redevelop the property and bring it back into commerce. I mean, that's ultimately what I'd like to see. But
would you also like to see the city come back and give us some other options about how to maintain the property in the meantime?
if there are other options, I would certainly love to hear them.
But- I think the trick is the application in front of us is for demolition or not demolition. So
Yep.
we can't, while we would love to instruct the city on how to maintain it, I don't know that we can. They can certainly bring more information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my motion would be to defer this for 30 days and attempt to get our inspectors access to the interior of it and ask the city if they can come up with any alternatives to demolition. And we understand sheriff's sale is in that mix, but if there are any other things we can do, we would like to hear that.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Commissioner Bruno seconds. Is there any further public comment on this application? Any additional comment from commissioners? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, and we'll see you in 30 days. Yeah, the next meeting. Item D, 3301 Magazine Street. Is the applicant present? Please, board, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Stephen Bellflower, 1824 Murray Street, and I'm the architect representing the owner.
Thank you.
This is an application for the demolition of more than 50% of the roof of a non-contributing rated one-story commercial building in partial control uptown. Based on Sanborn map research, the existing masonry building was possibly constructed as early as 1885 within the period of significance for the local historic district. However, the building has been highly altered over the years, including the removal of the corner awning and rear addition between 1909 and 1951, which enlarged the overall building footprint. It is unclear if the current door and window openings are original. However, there does not appear to be any historic doors or windows extant on the building. A previous HDLC building survey from 2002 notes the building is unrated. Based on this, the minimal amount of historic building fabric remaining, that the existing building is a more recent construction built after 1951 Sanborn map, HDLC considers the building non-contributing rated. The applicant is proposing to demolish 100% of the existing roof to accommodate a new rooftop and rear addition. Based on the building's lack of historic building, fabric, and non-contributing rating, staff has no objection to the partial roof request.
Thank you. To the applicant, do you wish to address the commission?
Sure. So the owner is very eager to bring the building back into commerce, and we certainly agree with the staff's approval for demolition.
Thank you. We have 3 public comment cards on this application. I'm going to go ahead and start calling those. Larry Schmidt, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Larry Schmidt. My address is 1217 Pleasant Street. I live a block from this particular property. And I'm here because the neighborhood has not had an opportunity to see or review the plans. We've heard all kinds of stories, but we would like to see them. And we feel that this is a very important corner, and we are interested in what this building is going to look like if there's going to be a demolition granted. So we're asking that you defer this, allow us time to meet with the architect and the developer to review the plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shelley Landrew. Please step forward, state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Shelley Landrew. I'm the Executive Director for the Garden District Association. My address is 5329 Dryad Street. We are here, as Larry said, to ask for a deferral. We have not, this is just as a surprise to us, really. I'm not even really sure of the process on this because it seems like we missed a few steps and all of a sudden it's before you guys. So we know nothing about the project and would like to know more and have some input in it. And as I understand, I thought that we had for demolition and new construction, it would go before the Architectural Review Committee and then you guys, and that would open it up for public hearing. Maybe I've got that process wrong in this particular location. I don't know, but we would like to have a say-so in it. So I would ask for deferral.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, it's in the Garden District. They're asking for demolition of a majority of the roof, but not the entire building. So that would be considered an addition, not all new construction. So therefore, it doesn't come under the jurisdiction of the HDLC. The Garden District chose not to have jurisdiction over additions, only all new construction. So that's why it's a demolition application only.
Thank you. Just to clarify too, Garden District is full control.
No. Garden District is
partial
partial control. And, you know, we had a
As
similar application with a rooftop addition to a significant rated building, where it was an addition at the roof that called for a large percentage of the roof to be demolished, but we didn't have jurisdiction over what would be added to the building because the Garden District elected not to have jurisdiction over additions, only all new construction.
Thank you. Alan Harden. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
It's Elaine Hardin. I reside at 3203 Britannia in New Orleans. We respectfully disagree that this is obviously a major new construction project. If you look at the drawings of it, you can see that a majority of the building is all new. It also has a metal facade, which is unusual for Magazine Street. It has major visibility on this corner because right across the street is the Beaumont parking lot. So there's nothing to stop you from seeing this building as you drive down Magazine Street. And waiting for this hearing, I looked at the HDLC guidelines and they talk about Magazine Street as, quote, one of those commercial special places, have a more cohesive architectural style with buildings of similar forms, mass, scale, setbacks, and materials. Again, metal facade is not something that Magazine Street is used to. If you want to go to Chapatula Street and see examples, you can, but not on Magazine Street. Again, this is new construction. And there's something missing here too, because if you look at this CZO in section 18.14.C.1, you will see that Magazine Street is a sub-district. When there is a new development, when there are development plans, design review is required. I would suggest the deferral is needed because legally you've got 2 issues here. One, this is new construction. All that's left is 4 walls. And if it's just a way to get around coming before you, so that you can look at a metal facade, we suggest that's inappropriate. We would, and then secondly, the CZO has to be adhered to. And I don't think the HDLC staff has looked into that, whether or not there is a design requirement because of the CZO. It refers to intersections, Magazine, Louisiana. This is the other end of the block from Louisiana
Yep.
Avenue.
That's,
So that this.
if you could wrap up your comments, we're at 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. The bottom line is, we would love to work with the owner on this. There's great potential for this property. I think they're underestimating what they could do with it, with the metal facade and what can go there. And we suggest deferral because you've got a couple of legal issues here that are substantial. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I'm going to let the staff speak to the CZO and the design review process and that is, and clarify that versus HDLC.
Yes, the CZO does require design review in certain corridors of the city. If it's a full control historic district, the HDLC does that design review. If it's not covered by the HDLC, then that design review is done by the Design Advisory Committee of the City Planning Commission. So that would be a separate process where the proposed addition would be reviewed if it qualifies for it based on the CZO.
And this committee, just to clarify, we utilize the Historic District Landmarks Commission guidelines. So we do not dip into CZO territory, although a number of us are very familiar with the CZO. I'm going to look at Commissioner Red. This is in her district.
Thank you to everyone who came out to speak. I think for due diligence purposes, it makes sense to defer this 30 days for the neighborhood to have a chance to get together with the owners, and would like to make a motion to defer this 30 days to come back to the commission for further review at that time.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from commissioners? Commissioner Wakeman.
I was in looking at the scale of this. I don't disagree that it seems to be a pretty significant change to what is already extant there. And I guess, is there a way to get a ruling to answer the questions that were raised by the public regarding?
Would there be a chance to vote first before we ask that question?
No, we have discussion on the floor with commissioners. We have a motion on the floor, but we need a full discussion before we have a motion. So just to clarify, as the staff stated, this is being reviewed as an addition, not as new construction or as a major demolition. Please go ahead and
Correct.
clarify
Yeah,
that.
it's just a request for partial roof demolition.
And again, the Garden District, as other districts, they're partial districts. So therefore, they've not elected to become a full control district where they have full review and everything goes to ARC for review. So when we've seen a number of these over the years in terms of additions, a few other things where it fits the definition and the guidelines for the way that it's being reviewed by the staff, but it most likely makes the neighborhood uncomfortable in that it is a change and change is difficult. And I think would like to have the control to review it. So I do understand the request for deferral. Just to clarify, that is a request for deferral to encourage the applicant to talk to the neighbors. It is not going to change it going to the ARC for review. To the applicant, you understand kind of the conversation that's in front of us today. Okay. So with that, we have a motion on the floor and a second for a deferral. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We'll see you here in 30 days. Thank you. Item E, 629 Webster Street. Is the applicant I'm actually going to take just a second just to let everyone know we do have a number of items on the agenda. I always assume everyone is really well prepared as we move through these. I would like to try and get to everyone's applications as much as possible today. There are a number that are duplicates or very close to each other on the next page, but would like to make sure we move through these items quickly just so that we can get to hopefully all docketed items, because I will cut time. We will end this meeting in a reasonable hour so everyone can get home and move those other applications to the next meeting. So with that, item E, 629 Webster Street. Please state your name and address for the record.
I am Ira Concepcion from Senso Architects, 1122 3rd Street here on behalf of the owner.
Thank you.
This is an application for the demolition of more than 50% of the roof of a contributing rated one-story single-family residential building for a Camelback addition and partial control uptown. FEMA survey and sample map research indicates the building was constructed between 1885 to 1895 and it first appears in the 1896 map. The applicant is proposing to remove approximately 74.6% of the roof to construct a new Camelback and rear addition. Because the Camelback is appropriately located a minimum of 2 historic rooms back from the front building wall per the HDLC guidelines, staff has no objection to the partial demolition application.
The applicant, do you wish to address the commission? Do we have any further public comment on this application? If not, the staff is recommending approval of the application, has no recommending no objection. Commissioner Bruno, this is in your district.
Is there currently a chimney on this building?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Is there a chimney on this?
Currently a chimney on the building?
Don't believe.
The applicant is nodding yes.
There's looks
behind
like
you.
one.
So seems that the plan would actually involve the removal of the chimney. So I would recommend, I mean, I can't recommend, but I mean, possibly maybe you could scoot your addition back some because the chimney is important.
I did explore an option to keep that chimney. And we did an aerial survey of that chimney. It's not operational. I guess the previous owner had blocked that off. So with it being an obstacle with the interior renovation, after exploring keeping it, we decided to demolish it as part of the scope.
And has the staff reviewed the chimney removal as part of this demolition?
No, this is partial control, so we don't have jurisdiction over the chimney, unfortunately.
That those partial control districts. Okay, Commissioner Bruno, I'm looking for a motion from someone here or further discussion. We need to. The staff has no objection to this application. I cannot make a motion. I'm looking
I would
at
like
it.
to move that they need to keep the chimney, but they can demolish what they need to of the roof other than that.
To the stat, can the staff clarify, we do not have jurisdiction in a partial district over the chimney,
That's correct. Only of the roof structure.
only of the roof structure. So you would be requesting Commissioner Bruno to just move that line back an additional
Whatever it is.
number of feet.
Yeah. You're right, John.
So the applicant, have you reviewed?
Yeah, given the program, I don't think we can set it back even more. But I think what I could propose to the owner is if we try to build around the chimney after demolishing it, so maybe not demolishing the chimney, and then kind of building around it.
We don't have jurisdiction over that, even though you've heard the application before, we don't have jurisdiction over what happens once the demolition is released. So I guess Commissioner Bruno, are you putting forth a motion for denial or a motion for deferral or?
Putting forth a motion to approve the demolition except for the chimney.
But Commissioner Bruno, we don't have control over the chimney, so that's not possible. We would have to amend the percentage of demolition.
Okay.
So we would either have to, the options on the table, or we could offer a deferral to the applicant so that they could revise the drawings and work with the staff and come back in front of us with potentially a different demolition application, or revised demolition application. Or we can put forth a motion to approve the demolition as is or deny the demolition.
Okay, I would like to ask that we defer this and give the architects a little bit more time to look at this demolition application.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Keen seconds. Any additional public comment on this application? Any further comments, discussion from commissioners? All those in favor? For the deferral of the application? All those opposed? We have 3 opposed. What is our count? Let's do roll call.
Yes, please.
Okay. Commissioner, okay, hold on. Commissioner King, Or you want me to go from the end? Commissioner Love?
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Love. This is in favor of deferring. Donna Wakeman.
Yes.
Heather Sapari. Stephanie Bruno,
Yes.
Jason King. Yes. Lee Bressler. Annie Clark. Greg Hackenberg,
No.
Jennifer Green.
No.
The motion fails. 6-3.
Okay, so I would like to offer, is there an alternative? Sorry, I cannot offer a motion. Is there an alternative motion on the floor or discussion? Commissioner Wakeman. Thank you. So approve the demolition and the staff's recommendation. Commissioner Love seconds that. Is there any further discussion from commissioners? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. All right. Item 9, old business retention applications. Item A, 5807 Royal Street. Is the applicant present? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, ma'am. Warren Wright, 1726 Jackson Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
Okay, this is an application for the retention of failed final inspection items, including the installation of visually prominent tankless hot water heater, installation of inappropriate porch decking, flush mounted gable vent, window pediment trim, and the change of size and location of window openings at a new construction of about 1,800 square foot, one-story, single-family residential building, and deviation of a C of A in full control Holy Cross. So the 4 elements or items being requested for retention are the wall-mounted water heater, porch decking, gable vent, and pediment trim, and the windows. And just to go through briefly, for the wall-mounted heater, the HDLC guidelines require this to be installed such that it is minimally visible from the surrounding public right-of-way. HDLC did approve the installation of a water heater at this location. However, the equipment should have been installed lower on the wall so that the top of the unit was only 7 feet above grade to ensure it's fully concealed behind wood fencing. Because it was installed high on the wall and is considered visually prominent and visible from the street, staff recommends denial of the request to retain it and recommends it be lowered on the wall. For the porch decking, the HDLC guidelines note that the decking was typically constructed of tongue and groove boards laid perpendicular to the building wall. The HDLC approved drawings indicated such decking would be installed. However, standard dimensional lumber with eased edges was installed instead. The porch flooring is prominently visible from the street and the decking is likely not able to properly shed water. So based on this, staff recommends denial of the request to retain it and recommends it be replaced with appropriate tongue and groove porch board. For the gable vent and pediment trim, HDLC guidelines require building trim and details to be appropriate for the building and surrounding historic context. The approved drawings noted that the front gable must be installed recess mounted with 5/4 inch wood trim, drip caps and sills as per the standard detail. However, the vent installed appears to be an alternative material and is flush mounted. Because this vent does not meet the guidelines and is prominently located on the primary facade, staff recommends denial of the request and recommends it be replaced with a typical recess mounted vent. And at the August 2021 meeting, the ARC noted the proposed pediment trim at the door and windows on the front elevation appears out of scale with the proposed building and recommended reducing its size or eliminating it altogether. The final drawings approved by HDLC showed no pediment trim as per this recommendation. However, the applicant did install the trim above the door and window openings, which are exaggerated in scale and appear proportionally and stylistically inappropriate for the building. Staff recommends denial of the request to retain these and recommends be replaced with simple 5/4 inch wood trim. For the windows, the left and right side, at the August 2021 meeting, the ARC noted the proposed transom windows along the right side elevation of the building are not appropriate and should be replaced with standard height windows. Final drawings approved by HDLC showed these windows as standard height as per the recommendation. However, the applicant installed narrow transom windows instead as per those initial drawings. Because these windows were specifically noted by the ARC to be standard height and because they are visible from the street, staff recommends denial of the request for their retention and recommends these be replaced with standard height windows to match the others on the elevation. And finally, the ARC also recommended approval for 2 transom windows toward the front left side elevation. And these were also indicated on the final drawings approved by staff. However, during construction, these 2 windows were not installed in the building in deviation of the approved drawings. The elevation now appears to have an inappropriately high ratio of wall to windows, and the pattern and rhythm of openings does not appear consistent or compatible with surrounding context. Based on this, staff recommends denial of the request for retention and recommends the applicant install at least 1 or 2 standard height or transom type windows at this location to better reflect the approved drawings.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, do you care to address the commission?
Yes, ma'am. I've been working over this project for over 2 years. And due to the back order of windows with the coronavirus, I'm quite sure you're aware of, I presented to Mr. Dennis the windows that I did purchase before. And it wasn't approved, so I had to kind of work with the windows that was HDLC approved in some sort. So that was basically, I was working with what I had on. That's why I eliminated the 2 windows, because they wasn't approved by Mr. Dennis. So I couldn't put those windows in without it being approved from the HDLC without messing up anything. So that's why those 2 windows were eliminated. We couldn't find 2 additional windows that were meet your guys' requirements.
Okay, so did you notify the staff that you were not going to install those windows?
No, ma'am. I sent them over. I sent the windows over. And I think he looked at them. He requested more details. And I kind of sent the catalog, what was all in it from the manufacturer. And I don't think it met I don't think he found what he was looking for. I don't know. Like, I don't think it was enough detail in them for him. And I couldn't make it, by the brochure coming from the manufacturer, that was all the details listed about the window in there.
Understood. So we've got 4 main items in front of us with multiple components to the window discussion, if that's fair. So on this one, so just so you're aware, you're in Holy Cross District, which is a full control district.
Yes, ma'am.
So the drawings that are reviewed by the Architectural Review Committee, the ARC, are then reviewed, sent to commission, they're approved, the staff has them. So you have to communicate while you're in construction for any changes that happen on the exterior. So go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, but I've been working with a project over 2 years. There was another inspector, a female inspector. I was communicating with her through VIE text.
There was a previous inspector who's no longer, the inspectors changed for the districts. Yes, that
Yes,
is
correct. So I was communicating via text. I don't have it in email, but I have it in text messages where she approved a lot of those things. Not saying that she approved the tongue and groove porch and stuff like that, but she was working with me. That's what I was communicating with about the property.
Okay, so I'm gonna let the staff respond to that. So we do have record of everything, but most of it is email format. So let me see what the.
Yes, I had asked for like evidence of any kind of approval that HDLC had provided him for these items, but I don't believe that any was submitted. And there's also some things that inspectors can't really approve on site because they basically require a plan reviewer to understand the drawings and the requirements.
Correct. So if you have documentation or something like that,
I only have text messages from the previous inspector. Well, she was going in detail about the rain, under the windowsill, all those type of things. I have text messages communicating with her about the property around Mardi Gras, I believe. January, February, I believe she left.
I mean, if we wanted. Well, I don't think we have anything. You didn't bring anything with you today. And
I have my phone with the
right now.
messages in it, but I don't have any emails. That's the way he was.
Yeah, we would have to have it submitted on record and reviewed previously, and a ruling to decide if they were actually, if that is the way. Usually, all of this comes via email, and your C of A is revised. So the C of A tells you exactly what's on it, and then you have to have stamped and approved drawings on site while you're doing construction. So those changes would have to be they're submitted back to the city in a digital format and then sent back. So like verbal text message things, I don't know, you might have those, I don't know that, but that's generally could begin the process, but it's formalized. If given that fact, I can't make a motion. If we don't have a commissioner here from Holy Cross today. If we would like to propose a deferral, we could do that.
Yeah, I'd like to propose a deferral, let you get the information, even though it was in a text, get it to the staff and see if that gave you approvals to do these things.
Okay, not saying all of those things were approval.
I know.
Gotcha.
Just see what it was
Okay.
and see what we can work with to try to, lessen some of the pain on these things.
Do you know how long is the deferment? Because I've been on this project.
We meet once a month.
Huh?
Referring it to the next month's meeting.
Defer it to January.
Okay.
20.
Is that enough time? Or
If you look at my application, I think it's been open like 400 days, I believe, 395.
Well, so here's, we can not provide we have a motion on the floor for deferral. That's pending that you're saying you have text messages that prove
Yes, ma'am.
that say that you were, some of the stuff was approved or was discussed with inspectors. We don't know that that will change the verdict of any of, as we move forward, we would just defer your application for hearing it for 30 days. Again, that's another 30 days because we just don't have all the documentation in front of us, but that's all we can offer is the next meeting.
Okay, what about the on the left side of the house? He's saying that the high water heat is visible from the street. Is any kind of way I have to go up a foot on the fence to hide that? Because me moving the high water heater will require some kind of demolition. Because
Why don't we, trying to get this one resolved as much as we can.
This was also deferred from last month's meeting.
yeah,
So he might be also trying to get this closed out and finalized because it's a new construction application.
Yeah, I would,
So the text messages were just about the windows?
it was yes, sir, about basically the front of the house. I have the pictures, I have the text messages, I have everything in my phone. I have on me present.
so we'd like to hear everything that you've got, right? And listen to everything. So we have all of the information in front of us, the text messages. I think if y'all are, maybe we go ahead and we go through the other items and see what it is. I will say, I don't think we can close this application out, even if we were to defer like the windows themselves. So he would still have the application open unless we move forward with kind of completing all of these items so that the C of A could be closed and the building permit could be
I mean,
finalized.
I guess this is your choice. You said you have more information that may lead us to believe that you had gotten some of these items approved or partially approved.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
you
sir.
also want to move ahead with your project, so we could do it either way. But
I listen, if it not to hold you guys up, if I could just move forward with correcting some of those things that's reasonable, I'm all for it because I've been on this
To
project.
clarify, you're not holding us up, right? I mean, you're here because the things were not installed per the drawings.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you're currently you're being held until these things are finalized because you can't get your final building permit. You can't close out and get occupancy until the C of A is closed. So
could we defer some of this to the staff level? If they approve it in between now and the next meeting, then that's okay. And
Yeah,
if they don't, then it comes back
and
to
that's
us.
normal. If they can work through items to try and get resolution in the next 30 days, absolutely. Hopefully we don't see these items and they're corrected before.
I would just like to say though, for like the issue with the change of windows on the right side and the missing windows on the left, those were all specifically recommended by ARC. So I don't even know if staff can approve.
No, the hot
removal.
water heater or those types of
No,
things.
Those
the-
items
these-
are different.
These items are before you because the staff can't approve them. So, my recommendation would be if he's not interested in a deferral, that we go through the items item by item and the commission take action on them because the staff didn't approve them and it's before you because we can't. That's your.
Okay,
fault.
it's either we go with what we have and make a decision, or we wait a month and you can provide some more information that might change our minds.
We good. I'm
Could
willing
I
to work.
s-
I'm willing to. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Wakeman.
Could I suggest that we take them item by item, and if the gentleman believes he has documentation on that particular item that indicates approval, then we could defer that item.
Can-
But at
can we
the
do
same
that?
time, we
Excuse me,
could
I'm the chair of the
clarify,
commission.
on specific items that he could then
Yes,
move
we
ahead.
can absolutely do that. I just want to move this forward because you've been deferred a month. If we defer another month, we have a number of items that have been deferred. We already have a meeting that is going to last far past 5 o'clock today. We're trying to move these things along and the staff's already done work on it. Let's hear them item by item, then we can decide if there's a deferral or not, if there's a motion. So do you want to withdraw your motion, Commissioner Bressler? to hear
Yes,
those
I
items?
withdraw, but which, are you saying it's an all or none? Can we approve
Let's,
two of them?
let's see where we can get and if we can do some negotiation to get this one moving forward. The water heater is first. It's mounted too high. Can you, the staff is recommending that you move it down to the original location. We do not have, well, the fence heights are dictated. I don't know what this fence height is in lieu of you asked the question, can you extend the top of the fence to hide the water heater?
That is not.
I'm going to let the staff respond to if that's a acceptable solution.
That would not, because the fence already appears 7 feet tall, which is the maximum height.
Correct, which is dictated. So on the water heater, the request is to keep it, right now, what we have in front of us is to leave the water heater as is in its current location, which is not approvable by staff, which is why it's in front of the commission. We can't guarantee that, we can't dictate a tree planting or any vegetation planting. We're here to review the HDLC guidelines And again, the drawings were approved and reviewed by staff and ARC, and this project has been going on for 2 years. So
What if you
Commissioner
were-
Hackenberg, do you want to offer
Uh,
any additional solutions?
I mean, we've had equipment issues like this, and I mean, this is a case where it is extremely visible. I mean, it's not even partially obscured. It's just sort of sitting right out there. And I think in the past, where there were ways to ameliorate it, we went with those. But in this case, I don't see any real solution other than moving it down to where it was originally proposed.
What about a trellis?
If it justifies any, there's a house on the corner, I'm not sure it's abandoned or not, but you only can see the water meter if you're directly in front of the house. So I don't know if it makes any
Yeah,
difference or not.
we use the HDLC guidelines, which is why we take so much time to review the drawings, and they come in front of all the staff that are in front of you, and the ARC, which is a voluntary group of architects that review and look at all the drawings. Projects sometimes go to the ARC 1, 2, 3 times, 6 times, sometimes for review until they're approved. As the developer, contractor, owner of the property, you're supposed to follow those rules. moving
were
forward,
followed
right,
to-
which you fully understand, right? So we can't, to the commissioners, the HDLC guidelines we don't dictate trellises, we don't dictate vegetation. So those are not gonna be acceptable solutions. The fence is already at 7 feet high. I'm trying to come to like, if there is a viable solution from a commissioner for allowing this to remain in its existing location. The other alternative is to just take the hot water heater down and move it. I don't know how your lines are run inside, but I'm guessing they're running down. So it's actually usually not as difficult as it might appear.
The removal of the hot water heater, I spoke to the plumber, is gonna require removal of some lines, some water lines in the house.
But if you just take the hot water heater and you move it down, it's gonna require rerun of plumbing lines inside of the house.
Yes, ma'am, basically. So it's kind of like
No. I mean, I'm not an architect and I don't do anything like this level, but I own a house and I have a wireless hot water heater and I had to move it down 4 feet. You're taking something and you're putting it below the box. So the wires are already there. You're just cutting into them. It requires you paying an electrician, but it doesn't require
removal of lines.
Removal of lines. That's my basic understanding. And I only have a basic understanding of this, but it's not that.
I'll go over with a different plumber and get a second opinion, but what are requirement? How far down?
Per the drawings. So
2 feet?
what is it? What is this? Well, no, what's the staff? What are the approved drawings state where the location is? So it's not.
There were no approved drawings for it.
Water heater.
For the water heater, but typically we recommend that the top of the unit is about 7 feet. So that way it's just behind the fence,
Did it.
it's covered.
So, but the staff can get with you to work through relocating the hot water heater lower so that it's not visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that make sense? So the staff could give you this as the height. It's approved. You can relocate it to that. So you're only doing this once.
Okay, so I'll be working with Mr. Dennis or Mr. Alex or
Your
Mr. Dennis?
plan reviewer is
Okay.
Dennis. Yeah, Mr. Murphy. Okay, item 2 is the porch decking. So
The staff, the staff prefers that it be made all in one motion, because if it gets appealed to the city council, we need the documentation of the compromises that were made by the commission. And that is lost if
Yeah.
it's in separate motions.
okay, let's go through porch decking.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
know you've been here for a while. You probably came last month and were
It's fine.
deferred. So porch decking, let's look at that. So the porch decking, the approved was tongue and groove porch decking, and this is it's not sloped and does not have, I guess, can you summarize the porch?
Yeah, it
decking?
just does not have the tongue and groove detail, which helps to also shed water because water gets into that little groove and is directed by the slope to the edge of the porch. Where this, it would just fall through. It's also just not consistent with the detail requirements.
Commissioner Hackham.
We've seen this detail before and have never approved it because it is an ongoing maintenance issue for whoever owns this house, with water getting underneath their house every time it rains.
Thank you. Same, generally reject this if we see it on site. Any other commissioners for comment on that? Okay, so I don't think that the porch decking itself, again, it's being denied by the staff, or the staff is recommending denial of that that second item of 4 that we're reviewing here. So you would need to replace the porch decking with
Tongue and groove.
tongue and groove.
Okay.
Okay. Item 3 is the gable vent and the pediment trim. So the current gable vent is flush mounted and not recessed, which could potentially cause and will cause most likely a moisture issue down the road for the next owner of this home.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we're requesting that you correct it and recess that gable vent.
Okay.
And also the pediment itself is tall. It's much taller than in the original drawings.
That's the documentation. Well, I'm not going to bring it up, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. What is your comment on
No,
the
that's
pediment trim?
the whole front, besides the tongue and groove decking, the whole front porch, the windows and everything. That's what I have. Text messages, pictures, VIE communication between me and the previous inspector.
Okay, and that's really for for the pediment that's attached to the window trim and the window detailing itself. So again, we're kind of at the same, I guess let's go through the window items as well. So there's windows that are omitted on the right-hand side. Windows have changed on the left-hand side. It looks like we're missing one window, or the spacing was changed potentially. Maybe the interior configuration moved. This, I guess, without kind of reviewing, it went to ARC and they specifically asked for those additional windows.
The windows on the right side were shown as the top example there as transoms, and that was specifically recommended to be typical height windows, which were submitted in the final approved drawings. And then
Okay.
for the left side, they were shown as the transoms on the left side, and there were no ARC comments, but that was recommended for approval based on that design. So when they omitted the windows, now the point I'm trying to make is that the ratio of wall to window is reduced. Typically, there would be a window closer to the front that's more visible from the street to show inhabitation, room size. So that's kind of missing now that the window was.
It definitely makes it a much darker interior and a less kind of welcoming facade. To me, given the other items that need to be corrected, if we could get the pediment trim corrected on the front, potentially accepting the windows, the removal of the 2 windows and the adjustment of the other 3. I don't know how other commissioners, if anyone has a particular opinion on that.
Yes, I think you mentioned that there was a supply problem initially with getting the windows. I mean, so you're suggesting that we require them to fix the water heater and the decking, but we leave the windows and trim as is?
Well, so there's the water heater would be denied, the porch decking would be denied, the gable vent would be denied, the pediment trim, and then the windows themselves could remain as is on the left and the right side.
Okay,
That's constructed.
that was my motion.
Okay, great. I've got a motion on the floor and a second from anyone. Commissioner Zafari, thank you. Any public comment on this application? To the applicant. So we're denying some of the items that are here, which the staff has already recommended denial. So just to recap, it's denial of the location of the water heater, and you're going to work with the staff to lower it or put it at the right height.
Yes, ma'am.
Denial of the existing porch decking as constructed, and that you would go back with tongue and groove porch decking again as approved by the staff.
Yes, ma'am.
Item 3 is removal of the gable vent and providing a new one that's recessed.
Okay.
Work with the staff.
Yes,
I keep saying it.
Gotcha.
Dennis will be your new best friend by the time you're done. And the pediment trim on the front is pretty tall. So if we can just adjust that down and make that more
Over the front
proportional.
door, the front porch door or the window?
It's the front over both the front porch window and the door. Change that's approved. And then the 4th item is the window retention. So we would allow you to retain no windows on the right side that are missing,
Yes.
and the 3 windows that are currently installed. And I think that's a pretty good compromise.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate
Okay.
everything. It's no,
Yeah.
I'm
no, I
willing to
got
work
you.
with, I work with Mr. Dennis to get.
That's great.
get
And
it.
Dennis Murphy is your staff reviewer. He'll go through everything with you and approve it. Just make sure you communicate so you can get closed out and don't have to come back to commission.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So with that, we have a motion on the floor and a second from a motion from Commissioner Ressler, a second from Commissioner Zafari. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. Hopefully we do not see you here again.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. Email.
All right, moving on. 10, new business retention applications. Item A, 3240 Laurel Street. Is the applicant present? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name's Stuart Campbell, 4825 Pulse Drive, Metairie, Louisiana.
Thank you. The staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
This is an application for the retention of the removal of 2 chimneys at a contributing rated 1-story single-family residential building in deviation of the certificate of appropriateness in full control Irish Channel. The residential building previously had 2 visible chimneys located near the front wall of the house. A stop work order was posted on November 21st. Once the building had been opened, it became very clear that the chimneys had been removed. As the chimneys were removed without HDLC approval, but cannot be reconstructed, staff recommends that the retention application be granted. Staff also recommends that the applicant work closely with staff moving forward.
Thank you. You wish to address the commission?
Yes,
2
ma'am.
minutes.
So during the planning process, the chimneys were definitely an issue. The design of the floor plan wanted to be open. Obviously, with the HDLC, they wanted to keep the exterior chimney visible from the street. We worked together and came up with a solution. During the week of the week prior, I suffered a knee injury, torn meniscus in my left knee, which rendered me from being on the job site during that week. That week is when the demo contractors miscommunication demolished the chimneys. Obviously, this is not an excuse. That's just exactly what happened. So any recourse obviously is my responsibility. I just wanted to be known that this was not done intentionally, and I accept all responsibility.
Thank you. Sorry about your injury. Thank you for being here today. And it is very unfortunate we've lost the chimneys. Removal of 3 chimneys. Jesse would not be happy. Commissioner LeBlanc would be very upset. So, but they've now been demolished. This is in Commissioner Hackenberg's district. We're in front of us to look at the retention of the demolition.
Yeah, and again, we've lost chimneys, and it's a little frustrating looking at the approved drawings, and the staff has clearly indicated the chimneys to be remain in multiple locations. And somehow that just never gets communicated to the field, or very rarely does. But the chimneys are gone. And I would move with a staff recommendation to approve the retention of the demolition and ask that you work closely with the staff in the further on and make sure you have a set of the approved drawings on site and make sure everybody knows to look at them.
So you want them to rebuild the chimneys?
No, approving the retention of the demolition.
Oh, not do it. Okay.
No, we generally do not recommend rebuilding chimneys just because if you don't have anything underneath that supports them, it's a problem. It depends on the height of them. So we generally don't recommend that. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Commissioner Clark? There is no fine on, there's no fine on new not on retention applications. Is that correct? Yeah. Is there any additional, I'm just gonna call for public comment. Is there any additional public comment on this application? Is there any further discussion from commissioners?
The demolition definition relates to the exterior structural walls, the facade, and the roof, not to chimneys. And so the fine cannot be applied. There is a retention application fee that is paid, and this would have been in deviation of the C of A. So that would have been a $250 application fee.
I have paid that fee.
Is that a rule of the HDLC about chimneys not being? I mean, can that be changed? Not for this, but
No, cannot. Doesn't fall under the definition of demolition.
whose definition?
The HDLC's definition that was promulgated and approved by the city council.
And it was revisited, I'm gonna say in 2021 or no, 2020. It was under the previous council.
Because this will just happen again and again and again if we have no control over it.
I have a question.
Commissioner Bruno.
If there are issues that the commission wishes to have us modify our regulations, we can pursue that. It's just very complex. And it's not something that, we would recommend we've just gone through, modifying the demolition definition. And to go back to council and say we'd like to modify it again, I think would be kind of onerous.
No, I understand, but there's certain cases where we do require people to put the chimneys back or whatever.
Well, it's sort of a different issue. And
Because it's a bigger-
we discussed that amongst the staff while we were writing this report. And, Commissioner West is correct, but also part of the issue is that the historic chimney is gone. And so to have them rebuild a new one, it is no longer historic. It presents a false sense of history. It would be difficult to reproduce the chimney to that quality. So that's why we came to our recommendation.
If we didn't approve this, what would happen?
It would, I'm sorry, do y'all want
If the retention wasn't approved by the commission, they have the option of appealing it to the city council.
The city council doesn't approve it, then what?
They can appeal it to the civil
I know,
district
but if
court.
they go through the whole process and they lose all the appeals,
If that were to happen, then it would be, I guess, I would ask the attorney, the civil district court. If they upheld the HDLC and the city council, then they would be forced to rebuild a chimney.
but it's generally it's overturned by council, is if you look at the record. And I would agree with the staff in terms of the definition of demolition was just revisited and revised, and to reopen. Revise it, that's a huge undertaking that took a lot of time and effort, and also exposes a lot of other elements that were happily changed in that section. So, yep. Okay, so we have a motion on the
I
floor.
have a question.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Bruno.
Were we aware that the building would look the way it does in this photograph where there's just external?
Which photograph were you looking at?
This one.
Where, can you flip to the image where it's essentially all studs? Commissioner Bruno is asking the question.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
The front facade of this building was highly altered, and they are kind of restoring the front facade more to what it originally would have looked like. So the facade has already been approved for mostly removal. And then the rest of it, while looking very scary, is just the siding removal and replacement. And they are going to be sistering some framing, which was my reason for the proviso of working very closely with staff moving forward. So we do not come back with a retention of partial demolition.
Excellent. So Commissioner Hackenberg, do you want to add that proviso to your motion? Of just requesting that they work with the staff very closely.
I believe I had that in the motion.
Okay, sorry. It's been a minute. So yeah, thank you. Do we have a second from Commissioner Clark? No additional public comment. Any additional comments from commissioners? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. I hope you don't get injured again and you keep a close watch on the job site. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank y'all.
All right, item B, 3424 St. Claude Avenue. Is the applicant present? Given the applicant's not present and the number of items on the docket.
It's a recommendation for approval.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If that's,
for retention. Yeah, let's go
Yes.
ahead. Absolutely.
all right, this is an
I
application.
move that we approve it.
You might want to hear
Let's
it
hear the
first.
short version. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Just application for retention of visually prominent roof mounted solar equipment at a contributing rated residential building. There was a non-structural permit opened in 2021, but that was never issued, and the solar panels were installed in a non-contiguous arrangement. But it wasn't discovered until now that they were actually installed, but they have since rearranged the panels to be to the HDLC guidelines. So staff is recommending approval for the visually prominent solar panels in this current configuration.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this application? No public comment. Commissioner Bressler, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I'd like to move, we approve this.
Thank you. Commissioner Bressler makes a motion to approve. Commissioner King seconds that. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good luck with your project. Item C, 1515 Uterp Street. I am I went through these. My understanding is C, D, E, and F are similar, or at least on the same block. I guess let's see if the owner can come forward or the representative come forward and state your name and address for the record. If you can just stay standing, hopefully we can knock through these four relatively quickly.
My name is Alec Adamick. I'm the architect of record and I'm the client's representative
Thank you.
who's unable to attend today.
Thank you, Mr. Adamick. The staff will make their presentation and we'll hear your comments following.
Yes, so the buildings are all on the same block, but they are all very different
Mhm.
buildings with different issues. So
Let's see.
it's
Yeah, let's
a lot of
go through.
information.
Yeah.
All right, so this is an application for retention of a roof line alteration, construction of a rear addition, installation of CMU foundation piers, and installation of visible mechanical equipment at a contributing rated two-story single-family residential building without a certificate of appropriateness and full control lower garden district. In 2016, an existing clay tile roof parapet at the 1515 Uterp Street was removed and replaced with an architectural shingle roof covering. It's unclear what structural alterations were made during this project, but it appears that the condition between the existing parapet and the long low slope roof slope was altered to prevent continued water intrusion. As a contributing building, this change should have been received and reviewed by the HDLC NO Commission for modifications to the parapet as well as the removal of the clay tile roofing. Staff recommends retention of the roofing alteration with the proviso that the ridge tiles be installed at the ridges to match the historic condition. During that same time frame, a two-story rear addition was constructed at the building, at the rear of the building, increasing the overall square footage. And although the roof lines did not match, several details, including the siding and windows, are consistent with the historic portion, with the other historic portions of the building. The visibility of the rear addition is lessened by the proximity of the surrounding buildings and existing fencing, which reduces overall sight lines. Although it was unfortunate that the addition was not reviewed and approved by the HDLC, ARC, and Commission, the addition was completed since 2016. Staff recommends approval of the addition, or retention rather. Mechanical gas upgrades were also in the scope of work in 2016. Hot water heater equipment and enclosure for that equipment and associated venting were installed at the, I believe, the right side elevation. Due to the areas of fencing, the equipment was is not prominent from many sight lines. However, the associated venting is extremely visible and extends to the second story of the building. Staff recommends retention of the mechanical equipment with the proviso that alternative solutions for venting be pursued. If that is not possible, staff recommends denial of the retention of the mechanical equipment and relocation at the rear of the building. Also, foundation repairs and installation of new CMU piers were also completed during the building's renovation. Staff recommends the retention of the new CMU piers provided that they receive an HDLC Parge Coat covering. And that is it for this one. Just provided that there be stucco coat put over the new CMU piers to match.
There's a cheat sheet on the, all right. Oh, gosh, that's excellent. Well, here, I got the list right here. This is Lower Garden District, so we do not have a representative right now. Excellent.
So it sounds like you've got the roof line you're okay with, the rear addition you're okay with, the foundation, you want the stucco, and the mechanical equipment, you want to know if they can have venting. If not, you don't approve it. I guess the question is, can they do the venting?
We don't believe that they could be moved to the back. I was going to suggest maybe we could paint the vents white to match the building to conceal it more.
So you cannot comply with their recommendation?
I believe that the addition is built like right to the property line at the rear of the property.
And staff still thinks the venting is an option?
I mean, that was what was in question. Basically, I wasn't sure, exactly where the lot lines were and if that was possible to move so that would be
I'm
up
gonna
to
back
y'all
up
to
for
see.
just a second. And I'm sorry, Mr. Adamick, we did not give you the opportunity to speak. We got really excited about making a motion.
Oh, okay. Well,
So would you like to address the?
so yes, I am the architect of record now, right? I became involved in these projects in 2019 after all of this work had been completed. And we originally started on 1515 Uterp, but The owner owns a number of buildings on this block. So we are, again, we feel like the staff has been very helpful here working with us on these projects. We've been out to visit the site multiple times with them. Some of the things I just wanted to mention was that I don't think we can move the water heater to the rear of the property because I've been informed by the owner that's like right on the property line. It's at 6 inches from the property line is what he told me today. I don't know how the vents could be concealed in their current location. And the only thing I could think of was potentially painting the vents white to conceal them. They are pretty far back and honestly, in my opinion, not very visible. And I think if you look at the older photo there from 1999, those vents were there at the time. So it's kind of like replacing in kind almost. We're happy to do the parge coat and the terracotta ridge tiles. No objection to that.
We're doing for Bridgetown, why not the B channel?
Yeah, parge coat is stucco coat.
So staff is okay with two of the things, with the roof line and the rear addition. Is that correct? Painting those.
They're
Not much as okay, but that, retention, that
objection.
they're there, so.
terminology is grant retention of the alterations with the proviso that the ridge tiles be installed at bridge.
So the only thing really in question is the equipment. And the architect doesn't think they can be.
Absolutely. Which is why we're in front of the commission to discuss it, but we can, I'm gonna look at Commissioner Hackenberg. Do you want to?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with these buildings and they unfortunately have not been treated as well as we would like to see over the years with numerous repairs and upgrades and attempts to stop water from getting in over the years. And so I think there's to some degree, they've been compromised a little bit in some of these regards. And I'm looking at this, the vents going up and I think they are far enough back. And if they were painted the color of the house, they probably would just go away. I mean, they're running in straight lines. There's no real odd conditions about them.
You can see it the most in the images below the context. Mackenzie, who's got control of sorry. Yeah, you can see it kind of in the second photo over.
Yeah.
Is that a motion I was hearing that you were starting to do?
Yeah, I
next one.
guess I'm starting to get one.
Sorry, that one.
If you want to hand it off. So I would make a motion that we allow the roof modifications with the proviso that the ridge tiles are replaced. We allow the retention of the addition. And we allow the retention of the mechanical and gas equipment and venting. And we allow the retention of the CMU piers with the proviso that that a parge coat is applied.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion. That was pretty much what I was going to say.
I also need to ask, is there any additional public comment on this application? There's no public comments. Is there any further discussion from commissioners? No commissioners or no further discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. On to the next building on the block. Mr. Adamick, stay up here. Item D is 1517 Uterp Street. Alec, will you say, Mr. Adamick, will you say your name and address for the
Yes,
record, please?
I'm Alec Adamick. Our office is at 1139 Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard, and I'm here to represent the owner of the building as his representative.
Thank you.
All right, this is an application for retention of the removal of left and right side rear balconies, the removal of second story additions, and the removal of window cornices at the front facade, and the removal of existing windows and installation of inappropriate windows at the rear of the building at a contributing rated 2-story, 2-family residential building without a certificate of appropriateness. 1517 Uterp Street is a contributing circa 1860 2-family, 2-story clip gable and hip roof residential building with Italianate detailing. Historically, the building sported a 2-story gallery at its front facade with balconies extending to the side elevations. In 2019, the HDLC placed a violation on the property for work performed without an HDLC permit. The violation stemmed from work completed in circa 2016. The violation included the removal of existing 6/6 wood windows and the installation of inappropriate vinyl windows at side elevations, as well as the removal of side elevation balconies and portions of enclosed side balconies and the removal of decorative trim and cornices at front facade windows. The property has a lengthy history of HDLC violations for both working without permits and demolition by neglect conditions. This track record has caused the building to be in a state of disrepair for several years. Sorry, give me 1 second. In 2014, an HDLC C of A was issued to address a number of debuy-in conditions. This C of A included line items to replace missing glass windows and repairs to columns and balustrades at side elevation balconies. Between 2014 and 2016, work under this C of A far exceeded this approved scope, eventually being cited under the 2019 violation. Per the 1909 Sanborn fire insurance map, the building wasn't not only had an impressive double front gallery, but also included an original 2-story balcony at its left and right side elevations. At some point in the building's history, sections of the side balconies closest to Uterp Street were removed and or enclosed. It is likely that the enclosed portions of the balconies and those at the rear where the building steps in were removed without HDLC approval at some time prior to the issuance of the 2014 C of A. At that time, the existing 6/6 wood windows at the rear, left and right side elevations were removed and replaced with inappropriate grille in between the glass vinyl windows. And in addition, at least one door at each side elevation was removed and replaced with a window. This scope of work would have required the review and approval of the HDLC Commission. Repair work to the front facade during this project also led to the removal of decorative cornices at the front story facade windows. Historic documentation and photographs of the building highlight the importance of the character defining features of the side elevation balconies. Currently, large voids of space between the first and second story windows at these locations make for an awkward condition. Staff recommends retention of the removal of the enclosed water closet portions closer to Uterp Street as they distract from the building and were not original. Staff recommends approval of retention of the inappropriate vinyl window. Staff recommends approval of retention of inappropriate vinyl windows at the side elevations with the proviso that the rear side elevation balconies are reconstructed to match the existing condition. Staff also recommends denial of retention of the removed window cornices and that the window cornices be installed to match the existing front facade windows.
Thank you. Mr. Alamick, excuse me. Would you care to address the commission?
Yeah, so again, we thank the staff for their time on this one. And again, we started working on this in 2019 with the original violation of the removal of the balconies and came through ARC or through, I guess, staff level approval to do some balcony drawings. And that's where I met the client. We did price that out and then COVID hit. I mean, it was like gonna get built at like $35,000. COVID hit and all of a sudden all bets were off. The building's not in commerce right now. So I mean, I think that this building is going to get renovated and I think it's going to be renovated within the next 18 months. I would like to retain all of the existing demolition at this time, if possible. I think the intent would be to come back and build these galleries, replace the cornices. The cornices weren't removed during demolition. They were stolen off the building. I'd be afraid that if we put cornices again, they would just be stolen off again as the building's going to be unoccupied. I think the best course of action for this building would be to allow us to come and honestly plywood the windows set back into the window casings at this time to secure the building. And that's what I would like to see at this point, and then just retain all the demolition. And then when we come back, we'll renovate it and bring it back and build a beautiful double gallery on the front and put cornices back and put the galleries back on the side. I think would be the intent of the renovation. But I don't, since we're here right now, I don't know if we can, what happens with that.
Well, obviously the buildings are in neglect. They haven't been maintained and things are starting to fall apart a bit here. So, I mean, I wish the owner would do the renovation sooner than later to keep these buildings watertight and get the envelope secure, especially given the amount of vegetation on the side of the building, as well as openings. I think plywooding makes sense, but that's obviously not a solution for sort of retention of elements that, you know, some of these, the the staff's done a lot of due diligence on these items. It's, and this is a lot to go through, so I appreciate the thoroughness in the report. I'm gonna recap. I'm just gonna go through the items that the staff highlighted, the notes on the side, so we can maybe take this piece by piece. And Commissioner Hackenberg, you're more familiar with these properties, it seems like as well. So item 1 is demolition of the side elevation balconies and enclosed portions. So the staff is recommending retention of demolition of enclosed water closets, portions of the balconies, and denial for the rear side elevation balconies. The water closets were they were not historic to the building, original to the building. So are you saying, I guess, applicants requesting that they're not just retention of everything currently as in its current state is what would be your?
Yeah, ultimately, yeah, I think so. I think the reality is that this building will get renovated. It's like, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say right now because I kind of signed an NDA with someone, so it makes it difficult to cross a line right now.
It is publicly
public,
televised. I'm just,
but
we'll note that.
but I can say that I think there is definitely an intent that this renovation will get started shortly. I mean, could we get a deferral for 60 days on this one? That would be huge, honestly. I think that within 60 days, I could resolve it to your satisfaction.
I would be open to that. I don't know. This is Lower Garden District. We don't have a commissioner from that district.
I'm propose that we defer this 2 meetings.
I'll second it.
2 meetings or 1 meeting?
I need to January 30. Wait, I think I need to January 30th is the date that I think I'll have it resolved to your satisfaction. So I think that would be the.
I think yes, with the proviso that the owner secures the building. And there's.
Okay.
The building's currently open to the elements.
I will, yeah, so what I would suggest then is that we're gonna like put plywood so it's like recessed into the casing, right?
You
In it white.
secure the building, secure the
Secure the
building.
building.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a detail for boarding windows and doors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Commissioner Bressler, do you mind amending your motion to include that?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second from Commissioner King. Is there any public comment on this application? Is there any further discussion from commissioners?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Bruno.
Does these buildings have a new owner or what?
Again, I can't talk about that at this time.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, Zappa is the owner, right?
Zappa is the current owner.
Current owner,
Zappa
but they may or may not be the future owner. And there's no fine involved in this. I'm asking a question for staff again, because
Just,
It's not a demolition.
and again, just to the commission, so they're aware, when we hear this application again, and if the ownership has changed, just keep that in mind as we're reviewing it, that it's not for a new owner, they didn't know about this. So, just keep that in mind as we move forward. But we have a motion on the floor in a second. Is there any additional comment from commissioners? If not, all those in favor? The motion on the floor is to defer the application for 60 days. Yes, with the proviso that they secure the property.
are you suggesting that for the next 2 as well, or?
No.
No.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously.
In the interest of time, I've asked Chase to abridge the reports.
I was about
He's
to ask.
only going to read the recommendations.
Thank you.
If you have questions, we have answers in the report that you should have before you as well.
Thank you. All right, item E 1527 Euthorpe Street. Mr. Adamick, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Alec Adamick. Our office is at 1139 Aretha Castle Haley in New Orleans, and I am here to represent the owner.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is an application for retention of removal of existing wood windows and installation of inappropriate flush mounted vinyl windows. The recommendation is to retain the vinyl windows with wood screens to the rear of the main gable, side facing gable, and install HDLC approved windows closer to the front to the front of Euterpe Street past the side gable. So it would be 10 windows to retain and 10 to change.
And it's the 10 in the back that stay and the 10 in the front.
Right, for visibility concerns. Yeah,
That's a great compromise. Mr. Adamick, do you care to address the commission?
Yes, again, there's severe formosan and drywood termites in this building, so it's crazy, a little bit. I've walked through it and we are intending to start repairs on it, but do have some concerns about that. The capacity to restore the building just because of the severe termite damage, which is really sad. But again, my client would like to retain all of the windows. Again, one of the things we were talking about doing was putting wood screens. The windows are installed, so they're inset into the casing, which is good. So I think that if you look at some of the windows, you can see that have the wood screens on them. I think because the building's set back far enough, you could make the argument that the final windows aren't really visible once the wood screen is there. And we're just wondering if we could just do that to all 20 windows.
So you're requesting, so right now we're 10 and 10 vinyl, 10 wood windows. You're requesting that we consider
20 vinyl windows with wood screens over them to conceal the fact that they're vinyl.
I don't see I don't see that as a possibility with
Okay.
the commission. I'm
Yeah.
not a voting member, but that's a big ask. Given
I think the staff has been very fair.
you can always ask.
I'm
but-
just asking. You can
yeah.
always say no.
Um,
One question I would have then is how quickly do we need to comply with that? Because again, it's to order windows. We're talking like 12 weeks with typical HDLC approved windows lead times, right?
I'll let the staff respond to that when there's a retention.
We always want to see that things are moving forward in good faith. So I think if there's an application that's approved and a permit or C of A that's issued, we understand back orders. But that way we know it's moving forward and we ask that the applicant stay in touch with us. And so, if things should change.
Okay, so what's in front of us today? So I'm gonna ask, is there any additional public comment on this application?
Can
Yeah, absolutely.
that be for me? I guess a 60-day deferral would potentially be helpful in this one as well, just because again,
Okay.
there's
There's a
some
request.
discussion about it, but it doesn't, at the end of the day, I'm certain that if that does occur, that all of the windows would probably be replaced with HLC approved windows at that time. So that would be good too.
Commissioner Hackenberg, did you
so
have something you wanted to ask?
I don't know what's better. So
Sorry, I thought I saw you.
No, actually, I wasn't.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But I mean, I support a deferral. I think we want to kind of keep
Just
a little
keep it
fire
moving.
burning under you.
Yep.
Just to make sure that
I mean, we could support a deferral. I just
Yes.
don't know that, given, all that's on the table right now is the windows themselves and whether we retain 10 and keep 10.
I think that's fair. I mean, if that's a great compromise, we'd be happy to
just
take
seems-
the staff's
Again,
recommendation.
we're all up here volunteering our time. We have a
Yep.
long docket of stuff.
I
and
don't want to do
There
that.
hasn't been a rush to renovate these properties, so
Understood.
we would love to get this one, a decision made and move this one forward. So if the compromise looks like it would be accepted, so we could provide a motion. There, Commissioner.
I'd like to make a motion that we do 10 and 10.
Well, before we get to them, we just said no to somebody to do that same thing earlier in terms of them essentially covering up their vinyl windows with like a.
No, we're not allowing,
We're not doing
so what's on the floor right
What are
now?
you saying? She's put okay.
Yeah, so we're voting,
We do all.
excuse me, I'm sorry, y'all, I've got to keep order. It's 5 o'clock. I'm tired too. There's order here. Thank you. So we're basically making a motion to support the staff's approval, which is removal of the existing wood windows and installation of inappropriate vinyl wood windows, which their recommendation is to retain the vinyl windows with new wood screens at the rear of the side facing gables, which is 10, and install HDLC approved windows closer to the front facade under the side gables of 10. So are the commissioners okay with that? And can they make a motion to move that forward?
I'd like to make a motion to move that forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Bressler. Commissioner Zapari, seconds. Is there any further comment from commissioners on this application? Okay, if not, all those in favor? All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. All right, stay put. Item F, 1531 Uterp Streets. Can the applicant state their name and address for the record one more time?
I'm Alexander Adamek. Our office is at 1139 Aretha Castle Haley. I'm here to represent the owner of the building.
Thank you. Ed, brief staff report.
Yes, this was an application for the retention of removal of existing windows and installation of inappropriate windows, removal of existing door and sections of balcony at a side gallery, and the partial removal of a balcony and balustrade at the rear of a contributing rated two-story multifamily residential building without a certificate of appropriateness. Quickly, so the retention items are the removal of existing wood windows and installation of inappropriate vinyl windows. Staff recommends denial of retention and that HDLC approved window be installed. The removal of the existing rear second story door, approve the retention as it wasn't an original door at that location to begin with. And then lastly, removal of section of a rear second story balcony and balustrade. Those were also associated with the door that was not original to that section of the rear of the building. So staff recommends approval of retention as well.
Okay, so the applicant, do you wish to address the commission?
Yes, so we walked the site with the HDLC, saw the inappropriate balcony and said that's not a problem for us to correct and provide the details for. There was a weird door that was kind of added and a weird balcony thing, and that's been now encased with drywall, but that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. And so they just want us to paint that. We're fine with that. Of course, we'd love to retain the 4 vinyl windows that they're asking us to remove.
And thank you. And for clarification, Chase, for the removal of the existing vinyl windows, the reason the recommendation is for denial of retention and install new HDLC approved windows is because they're so far forward on the side elevations of the building, it looks like.
Correct. Yeah. And the left side elevation windows are still existing.
Right. Okay.
So
Thank you. This seems like one we can move forward and do not need to defer the application. Commissioner
Would you like
Bressler,
me to make a motion?
let me ask for public comment first.
Oh.
Is there any public comment on this application? No public comment? Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we take the staff recommendation and we approve the
Let me read it for you. Ready?
yeah.
All right. Staff recommendations, denial of retention of the vinyl windows and install HDLC approved windows.
Mhm.
The second thing is to approve the retention and removal of the existing rear second story door
Mhm.
and removal and section of the rear second story balcony and balustrade. And staff is recommending to approve the retention for that.
You're an excellent mind reader.
Perfect. Is there a second for that? Commissioner King, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And good luck with the projects. We look forward to seeing you in 60 days and seeing these projects, these buildings be renovated. Thank you. All right, item G, 3000 South Carrollton Avenue and 8113 Big Street has been withdrawn. Item H, 2255 St. Claude Avenue, is the applicant present? Thank you for sitting through this longer than normal meeting today.
Pleasure.
To the commissioners, I'm just going to say we have this application and one more following. So the end is in sight, which is great. Please state your name your name and address for the record.
David Stiebel, 9 Moselle Drive, Kenner, Louisiana.
Thank you.
Represent the family or the parents of the owners.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
This is an application for the retention of demolition of a non-contributing rated rear accessory structure over 1,000 square feet to grade without a C of A and full control Marini. Sample map research indicates the rear accessory is likely constructed between 1908 and 1937 toward the end of period of significance for the district. It also appears that the original wood frame building may have been replaced or modified with a new iron structure, including an expansion of its footprint sometime between 1937 and 1951. Based on this, HDLC considers it to be non-contributing rated. However, it is over 1,000 square feet, so the commission must approve its demolition in advance. The applicant noted the accessory building was substantially damaged during Hurricane Ida and had begun to partially collapse and pose safety issues. The applicant proceeded to demolish the accessory to grade without notifying HDLC and without applying for a demolition permit or C of A. The applicant is now requesting retention approval for this work. The applicant should have contacted HDLC staff about the deteriorated conditions, so an inspection could have been completed. However, based on the age of the accessory, its non-contributing rating, and because it does not appear to have contributed architecturally or aesthetically to the surrounding district, staff recommends approval of the retention request and recommends a minimal fine be levied for the unpermitted work. Because the demolition was completed before August 1st, it's subject to the previous fine schedule of $1,000 to $10,000.
Thank you. Do you wish to address the commission?
Other than the fact that we don't consider a demolition since the hurricane actually tore it down. All we did was clean it up. And it was time is of the essence because the two owners of the properties that are adjacent to it, the demolished building was impeding their properties. One fell on a house, the other one destroyed a fence. and he wasn't able to allow his pets to run free because the yard was long closed in. And he couldn't move the roof, so we had to physically go in there and move everything. So the owners of the property are non-residents of Louisiana, and none of us had any idea that, number one, the property was even covered by the HDLC, or such an event even existed.
Oh,
So I mean, it's ignorance, but unfortunately, when you're not here, you're not exposed to it.
Well, thank you for that. That's a lot of information. So I guess just to that, just for the public watching. So St. Cloud Avenue, that portion is definitely in full control HDLC, the Marini. Make sure the owner knows that as well moving forward. That the Marini and the property that you're the owner, the out-of-town owner that owns this property, that it is in full control HDLC review. So both any new work that happens, demolition or anything in the future, any demolitions that occur during Ida, anything that falls over, the owner needs to notify the city of New Orleans to let them know that that's happening. Generally, there's a permit issued within 24 hours and someone comes on site very immediately, as you saw probably on an earlier one, to review that work. So just for the public that's watching this, so they're aware as well. Again, the demolition's taken place. It was a non-contributing building. It looks like it fell over during the storm. This is in the Marini district, so I will look to Commissioner Wakeman. If you have any comments or questions.
So you're saying that the structure fell down during Ida?
Most of it did. There was a shed of some sort of building that the roof and one wall were still there, but it was leaning on the other house. Everything else was destroyed by Ida.
So I then have a question for the staff. Can we, the fine range says, 1,000 to 10, but can we go below 1,000? No. So it's either 1,000 or nothing.
And the applicant did pay $500 in order for their retention request to be
I'll
heard
let
already.
the staff answer that question, but
Okay.
you don't-
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds correct, Hannah. I mean, is there any, I mean, it is weird that it's 1,000 at the low end, but I would say that, they paid a $500 retention fee. We have pictometry imagery that shows that they are telling the truth. It was a post-Ida collapse, and that I think that it is fair that could be considered the fine. That's where you were going with it.
Exactly. That's where I was going, because I'm not inclined to let somebody off scot-free. To emphasize the fact that these kinds of, that dealing with the HDLC is a requirement. But if you all have already had to pay a $500 fee for this application, I think that's sufficient. So I move to approve the staff recommendation without a fine.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Actually, is there any additional public comment on this application? Seconded by Commissioner Green. Go from one side to the other. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have other property. We'll make sure that we follow the guidelines.
Yeah, just check. The property bureau will tell you if you're in HDLC. So make sure you check those properties. Item I, 1437 St. Andrew Street. This application has been withdrawn. Item J, 3704 Coliseum Street. Is the applicant present?
Believe the applicant was requesting a deferral.
Please step forward, state your name and address. And
Hi, my name is Lisa Picconi. I'm here representing Nicole Weber. She had requested a deferral.
thank you.
I'm sorry?
For one meeting or how?
Yes, 30 days.
Okay. With that, I don't know that we need to listen to the staff report. Let me ask if there's any public comment on this or anyone present. Okay, no public
I'd like to
comment.
make a motion that we defer this for a month.
Commissioner Bressler makes a motion to defer for 30 days. Commissioner King seconds. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll see you in 30 days.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think there was an issue with parking earlier. Is there anything that can be done about parking for commissioners? 'Cause I know some people couldn't make it because of the parking or.
We always ask that the boards and commissioners parking be unlocked. I've always said I would never count on that as a parking spot because often either it's not unlocked or it's already full. So we have not been given any alternatives besides the boards and commissions parking lot for commissioners. Unfortunately, there's a fee for your volunteer work, which is often in meter parking or paid parking lots.
Thank you. Almost finished, not quite. Item 9, ratification of architectural review committee and staff actions since the November 2nd, 2022 meeting. Motion by Commissioner King, seconded by Commissioner Hackenberg. Are all those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. HDLC reports and communications.
Thank you all for a great year and happy holidays to you all.
Thank you, and we'll see you in 2023. I have a couple tonight, so I don't know. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.